You're up and it's still dark. Kick back with a cup of joe. You know you've got friends waiting on 1620 The Zone. It's Happer and Schaefer. It's Connor and Mike. Listen on the radio stream or YouTube or podcasts. Anytime it feels right. It's Happer and Schaefer.
All right, good morning and welcome in. Happy Tuesday. It's Happer and Schaefer on 1620 The Zone and on 1620thezone.com. Happy rainy Tuesday. That's right, the rain is back. Do you smell it? I smell it. Spring is on the horizon, and guess what? There's baseball being played in this state today.
Baseball.
Can you believe it? Well, I mean, I guess in theory, I don't know what I assume they'll play.
I don't think the rain's supposed to stick around that long.
Yeah.
So I did forget that it was coming.
This
I
rain
didn't think it
will
was going to happen.
clear out, and they will play baseball at Haymarket Park today. The Mavs and the Skurs going to get going.
Ooh, go Mavs.
Wow, Joey, Husker hater Joey, is this true?
UNO's my school.
Yeah, I guess that's true. The
Have to
Mavs were the, I believe, took more games than they lost last year from the Huskers in baseball.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
usually the
that's
case.
kind of been a thing
That's a regular
in
thing.
recent years.
Maybe it should
Nebraska.
stop being that. for
Well, if they
Nebraska.
schedule on the weekend and just play 3 in a row, Nebraska has a
Oh,
much
since
better
that's
chance
a
of winning.
normal thing.
That's
every-
Nebraska's apparent problem, I guess.
Why does Nebraska have a problem with that? Nobody ever does that.
No, look, I'm just trying to explain why they just can't win games that are played between Tuesday and Thursday.
What an incredible excuse.
I'm
What an incredible excuse.
I'm not trying to.
If only they'd play us on the weekends.
Yeah,
That's not how it works.
I'm not trying to say it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's their issue.
That's
They
not how
apparently cannot play games between Tuesday and Thursday against Summit League teams or Creighton.
Yeah, it's weirdly
They're like-
specific.
Well, not that, that's not even a joke. They have a losing percentage over the last 3 years against Summit League teams in Creighton.
Yeah.
So very specifically, many of the teams of which they like to schedule in those Tuesday to Thursday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Not even Thursday, it's Tuesday, Wednesday.
Well, maybe this is the year they just do better in them. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I'd like to think that it's possible that a team that seems very capable on Friday through Sunday
Mhm.
could also be good on other days of the week.
Yep.
There's really not a lot of evidence for it lately.
Well,
So
good luck.
it starts again anew this year, I guess.
Maybe you just keep losing them, and then the excuse will rage forward more and more and more. We just are incapable of winning on the day of Tuesday. That's what LSU was saying last night when they got beat by Northeastern. Ouch. They were down like 100-0 and then came back and almost won and then lost to Northeastern. Creighton will get their crack at LSU a week from today, and maybe they'll pull out the whole handy-dandy excuse out of the bag. We just can't beat LSU on Tuesday. I wish they'd play us on the weekends.
Yeah, it's I think a viable excuse. If you can't win on Tuesday,
It's
You might as well
definitely
just
not a viable
blame it on
excuse.
it being on Tuesday. Look, you guys are lucky it's not Friday.
What about when it's Wednesday? You say it's Wednesday?
I don't know. I actually kind of want to go look and see if Tuesday or Wednesday is their bigger bugaboo day for Nebraska.
I'm sure that's in the media guide. I guarantee you it is. Either way, I can't.
Win-loss record by days of the week over the last 5 years.
Honestly, Schaefer, I forgot I forgot about that conversation about how that is true. They, it's been a struggle for them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Nebraska baseball, midweek games as they are usually referred to in college baseball. I'm honestly not excited to parse through the chemistry and and that entire thing again this year. So I hope they have a moderate amount of success, so that way we could just not talk about it.
Look,
Also, it doesn't really matter.
I think we can make a pledge to just not talk about it if we choose to not talk about it.
That would be cool. We
I mean,
can.
that's a thing we can just decide, I think. Now, I guess if the listeners really want to dive into the midweek,
I
ones,
imagine we'll be talking about some Nebraska Creighton games.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying we don't talk about college baseball. I'm just saying we don't have to try to deep dive as to why they don't have the pitching or are seemingly incapable of hitting pitchers that they will face that are likely worse than what they see on weekends.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. Even though
It's a very real thing.
even though all the other teams have the exact same problems.
No, I mean it's not like other teams don't also have to play on Tuesday.
Right.
They just happen to have the same team usually on Tuesday that they do on Friday.
I don't think it's up
50
front.
miles down the road, they apparently have a very different team on Friday.
I don't think it's up front and
Center
here in the Nebraska notes because, like you said, it wouldn't be particularly flattering. But Nebraska is 48-8 in home openers since 1970, and they are 20-3 in home openers since 2002.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty good. But
That seems pretty good.
This ain't no Northern Colorado. This is the Omaha Mavericks. Anyway,
They're a different animal.
that is tonight. That's right. Joey, go down and root for the Mavs tonight. Are you going to, or are you going to sit around and watch Nebraska basketball?
I'm going to go to bed early.
You're just going to skip it all?
Joey's
I'm gonna
abstaining
skip it all.
from anything involving Nebraska.
Just skipping it all. Oh, yeah, you're boycotting Nebraska?
Yes, I'm boycotting Nebraska.
Because of your...
He won't even read spring coverage.
Is this true? You won't even read anything about the football team. Actually, do you? Is that part of your routine, Joey? Do you care?
I assume Joey doesn't care about Nebraska football.
That probably, yeah.
Here's my thing. Just given with how things have gone for the last several years, I'm not too emotionally invested into them just because I know what to expect. It's the same old show
The
every
rug
year.
getting pulled out from
Yeah, basically. I used
It seems like you maybe mildly enjoyed the Schadenfreude, like you like to laugh a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I kind of like to do.
Mhm.
And pretty much since supporting Creighton men's basketball, I've been kind of leaning more Creighton than Nebraska lately.
No more Jay scared, just Jay.
I still support Nebraska. It's just not as much as before, just because things haven't really changed with the football team.
Well, certainly
It's good to see the basketball team thriving.
Maybe the baseball team could have some success in midweek so they could prove things can change. I could change.
I'm just
You
unwilling
could change. We all could change.
And I always have the option to lean towards Ohio State since I got family ties with that university.
Now that is a poor option.
Yeah,
Don't
I don't think that's a real.
do not.
I
do not select that.
I have a sister that graduated from the Ohio State University.
That
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything for you.
Yeah, that doesn't count. That doesn't mean anything. You can have a shirt,
That
root for them against Michigan, but that's it.
This has allowed me to get flight benefits.
Well,
Be able
Your
to,
not the fact that
sister.
your sister went to Ohio State.
She
The
could've
fact
went
that
to
your
other
sister
places.
exists.
I know, but that's like the prestigious airport school.
You do whatever you like. You do it. I didn't
Ohio
know.
State's a prestigious airport.
I didn't know that
Yeah,
Ohio State was an
they have
airport
their-
school.
Yeah, they have their own airport.
Well, I don't know that that's just them alone, but
They have a really good program.
Nice. Well, whatever.
you learn things about Ohio State.
You could do whatever you'd like, Joey.
Maybe that's why Ted Carter went there. He wanted his own airport.
Well, he is the admiral after all.
You think he'd want docks or something like that instead, though.
a different kind of military. But I'm very cool with rooting for Ohio State against Michigan. That's just about it.
I don't have this disdain for Ohio State that
I don't
others
either.
do.
I certainly don't have
particularly
it for that, as it pertains, comparing it to Michigan.
Sure, yeah.
I hate Michigan quite a lot more.
But I couldn't possibly advocate for rooting for Ohio State if you didn't have to.
No. Nope.
So
Nope. Anyway, all right. We get down to the nitty-gritty on that one. Today on the show, we'll have Mitch Sherman coming up at 8:30. We'll have Jacob Padilla coming up at 9:15. That is our lineup today. We'd like to hear from you, 402-951-1620. On the Prairie Flower Casino Zone Hotline, you could call or text that number. Tweet at HappenSchafe, at Connor Happer, at Mike J. Schaefer. On Twitter, email Connor, Mike, Joey, 1620thezone.com on the Equitable Bank Zone inbox. And we say good morning to the YouTube streamers, including Kevin, who says, today is my birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
Kevin.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Kevin.
Thank you for being there for us bright and early
Yeah.
at 6 or sometimes before 6 to say hello.
Pretty much every day.
Pretty much every single day.
So it's not out of the norm that Kevin would spend his birthday with us as he spends most days with us, but we do appreciate that he chooses to
Indeed.
spend his time with
And
us.
it's not Debo's birthday, it doesn't seem, but he's always here at about 6 o'clock as well. That's pesky blues. I still hate how they changed the chat to do the ats instead of the actual names. It's
this is
very
the struggle
frustrating
that I have because you call these people out by names
what they
that
used
I
to be.
don't. Yeah, and I don't know what they are.
Like, I
And
guess
so
if I was going to
only
say
know Pesky Blues 34 is 34? 94.
Yeah.
As Pesky Blues 94.
yeah. I was going to say, like, if Debo ever changed his profile picture, then I would be completely lost, but that's not true. Now I just associate pesky blues with
It's
Debo.
a new association for
That's who he is. There's a couple people who we remember from the olden times as well. Those were better times as far as when your name showed up on the chat. Sal writes in on the YouTube. He says, "Spoken like a true Jays fan, Joey. Times got lean at Nebraska, so you took your fandom elsewhere." That is kind of what happened. I'm not, I assume that's the case with a lot of people.
Fun fact, I originally was a Nebraska basketball fan until I was introduced to Creighton basketball midway through the Doug McDermott era. Went to my first game against Akron.
And you were young at that point.
Yeah,
right?
I was in middle school.
Yeah.
This was like right after church, and we sat up in the nosebleeds, and
to the Church of the Jays.
and they
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
then one of the workers there moved us right behind student section, and I was happy.
What an excellent
Greg
experience.
is the father and Doug is the son.
Greg, Dana, Doug, and
Who's the Holy Spirit here?
Brian Kalkbrenner, I guess.
Okay.
Booker Woodfox. I don't know. Cavell Witter,
All right.
P. Allen Stinnett, Nate Funk. I'm not sure. One of those guys gets to be the Holy Spirit.
Seems like a debate amongst
It could be.
It feels like
It's a Mount Rushmore.
worthwhile debate.
It's a Mount Rushmore, but it's actually just the side of the cross.
Yeah, I like this. I like this bit a
Apply
lot.
it, apply it to the Jesuit school. All right. We are off and running here on a Tuesday. We are pleased that you are with us today. Thanks for being here. We will talk a little bit of baseball today. We have plenty of other things coming up. We'll get to our college basketball. Every week I come up with a new variation of the college basketball power rankings with tiers. And so we'll have that coming up here in just a few minutes. We'll see how we want to attack spring ball this year. Somebody asked before on the text line, what is a spring coverage? Well, we're about to find out exactly what that's going to look like today. We have some questions for you all and how we're going to do it. Nebraska ball has a late night date with Mick Cronin. Angry Mick Cronin tonight. Exciting stuff on the West Coast. 10 o'clock tip off.
You know how Trey Palmer
with a supposed TV slide, I'm sure.
You know how Trey Palmer tweets out that he wakes up pissed off, even though it's really hard to believe because Trey Palmer is always a very happy individual in the time that I would be around him.
Yeah.
I assume Mick Cronin always wakes up pissed off, but then never tweets about it.
Or
He's never had it's just the default setting.
It's the opposite. Yeah, interesting.
He would be like, "Hey, I woke up in a moderately okay mood today."
But maybe I don't get the sense that he's actually in that bad of a mood. I just get the sense that he really enjoys complaining. I
think he's actually in that bad of a mood.
I mean, he has. You sort of have to be a little bit of that when you create a team the way you're trying to create the basketball teams.
That's fair.
Play under his watch.
That is
tutelage. He's like, we're not going to score on offense at all. We are going to play defense and defense only, and we'll get a bunch of dudes who could maybe throw it inside the rim at the last second of the shot clock. That's what he did at Cincinnati. That's why I thought he was such a horrible fit at UCLA.
Yeah, and UCLA has not been that at all.
Yeah, they were early.
They're better defensively than what you previously think of UCLA at times. But it's what is it? Jamie, is it Jaquez or Warquez?
Jaime Jaquez, I believe, is the name you're looking for.
Right. None of it. Tiger Campbell.
Yeah.
Trying to think of who the other guy was that was part of that kind of run for them. There's a third person in there.
Should we go back to some 2020 UCLA teams?
We could. You got to see them. It's not like you saw them live, but
I watched them make a shot, or you get beat. I guess
you watched them not
make
a shot,
not make
or
a
have
shot.
someone make a shot on them.
Let's
However
see.
you phrase it.
Johnny Juzang. That was the other one you were probably looking
Yeah.
for.
It was.
That's a good one. Yeah, they were a lot better defensively at that point than they certainly are right now. Okay, so that is one of the things. I want to dive into an internet controversy of the week that Schaefer hasn't even heard about, so I'm excited about that. All right, anyway, that's the setup for the show today. We'll be back after this on 1620 The Zone. All right, 6:23. We're going to be time shows. Remember, we're still going to do that here on Happer and Schaefer.
Do we need to? Do I need to tell you the time in Australia again?
Please, yes.
It's 11:23 in Australia.
11:23
At
it's
night.
almost it's at night. Okay, yeah, they're 18 hours ahead. All right, so it's almost time to go to bed in
Turn your mic
Australia,
on.
and you're just waking up here in Omaha. Bada Bing writes in on YouTube, is that basketball player from USC really 32 years old from the Dominican and has 4 kids? No. This is another thing that we have to get we just unfortunately have to get used to, especially now that, you know, we're getting reintroduced to the world of college basketball burners. Almost everything you see as far as breaking news is fake these days. If you search through Twitter on and that's how you get your news, there's about an 85% chance that the tweet is not real. We surprisingly don't know specifically why Chad Baker-Mazara got kicked off the team, and he hilariously is really old for a college basketball player. He's been playing college basketball for a very long time, but we are to assume that he, there is some other stuff going on there that led to his dismissal from the team.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a super normal story the way Musselman talked about it after the game. Basically seemed like he was completely uninterested in even really having a conversation on it. So I think the whole thing had run its course and he was ready to move on.
I think so too. It just was one of those things where like, all right, I'm done with you, man. Like you've been a problem for me for a long time, so let's just end it.
If Kansas was in a similar like free fall, I could see Bill Self being like, yeah, we don't need to talk about Darren Peters.
Yeah, just I'm done talking about it. By the way, there was a big Monday game last night, Iowa State and Arizona, and for yours truly as an Iowa State honk, wasn't good. Was not pretty last night. They Arizona turned the faucet off pretty good on Iowa State. So Arizona won at 73-57, and they are. Really, it looks more and more sure every single day that we have 3 locked in, solidified 1 seeds. Duke, Michigan, and Arizona.
I think we were probably there last week because of the absence of like even a really strong 4th that, Arizona felt like a very safe 3rd. But
I can't see very many scenarios where those aren't 3 of them, and then it's basically just open season on the 4th. And that's our topic basically today for college basketball power rankings with tiers, or college basketball reaction, overreaction, whatever you want to talk about. So basically how we look at it, or how I look at it anyway, is you have those 3 teams at the top, and I just don't think they're going anywhere, like we just said. So you could either say that they're all in the same tier together and then just say, well, here's everybody else, or you could make something a little bit different out of it. So I saw our friends from T3 Bracketology put this up last night. This is basically all the teams that could potentially have claims to that 4th number 1 seed or a 2 seed. There's going to be a couple of these teams that are probably 3s or even below that. But these teams, I think everyone sort of is in the same position where these guys are very close to each other. They're in the same neighborhood. If you're watching along with us on YouTube, you can see this. They laid it out in a resume form. This is before the games from last night. So Iowa State has an extra loss. They don't have an added win on there. So they added an extra loss in Q1 last night. So the teams are Illinois, Purdue, Houston, Kansas, Michigan State, Nebraska, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. So basically how it seems is, unless they're just keeping UConn off of this because they're assuming that they get the other one.
Florida's not on there either.
Florida is the potential
it's basically
other one
just
as well.
Putting those 5 teams
aside
off on their own.
Yes.
That's how I read it.
That's how it looks like.
Yeah. Then the rest of it is like, who's 6? And then here's all of these teams.
Here's your options. Here's your possibilities. So what I want to ask with these teams in particular, once again, Illinois, Purdue, Houston, Kansas, Michigan State, Nebraska, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. I want to play a game of which looks better on each of these teams, resume or eye test? And like, once again, when we get into the time where we have to seed these teams and we have to rank these teams on Selection Sunday, I mean, there will be uses of both, right? But I feel like some teams have made their name based on resume and some teams have made their name based on eye test. I think that's probably a nicer way of saying they have some historical precedent of being here, or the name on their front of their jersey, or they have a bunch of talent or whatever it might be, or you watch them and the product looks better than the actual resume is. So let's does that make sense, Schaefer?
Yes, it does.
All right, so let's go all the way down the list here. Illinois, do they look better from a resume perspective or an eye test perspective?
Right now, they look better from a resume perspective because the eye test, they haven't looked very good lately.
Correct.
So it's like if you asked this a month ago, I'd be like, oh, they look better from an eye test because their resume is still vastly improving.
Here's the problem, though. Like you said, I mean, they're 22-7 now at this point. They've lost 4 out of their last 6.
Yeah.
And, none of them are bad losses per se. Michigan State on the road, Wisconsin at home.
If you
UCLA
watch them,
on the
they're
road,
sort
and
of
Michigan at home.
inexplicable and how, like you blow a double-digit lead to UCLA. You never should have lost. Like they outplayed Michigan State by a substantial amount and lost that game, I think, in overtime.
3 overtime games.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they've done a really bad job of closing teams out.
Right. And so I think, like, I don't know what category this ultimately lands in, but I feel like they are one of the teams that is sort of like we stick a thermometer in like middle of the season or like as we head into February and we say these teams are good, these teams are national championship contenders. Illinois is definitely was definitely one of those teams, and their record looked a whole hell of a lot better at that point. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, because I do think in most cases that ends up being true, right? Let's stick a thermometer in right now. If you're good right now, then you're probably going to end up playing for something important in late March and into early April. But their resume has, like you said, it's faltered a little bit just because they've lost these games. So I feel like they're sort of getting by on reputation a little bit at this point. I have never been as much of a fan as certainly you have. I've never been as much of a fan as everybody else seemingly nationally has been on this team. So I feel like they're getting by on, I guess they would be in the eye test category, simply because the common conversation surrounding them is always positive, and I'm not sure I really understand it.
Well, I can understand.
They don't seem like they don't seem like they're subject to the same criticism as most teams because of what they have from a talent perspective and how they have the number one team in the country. I think number one offense, I'm sorry, in the country.
I think that's kind of true of any of these teams on the list where you're like, yeah, I don't really see it as much as others do. Now, I can explain why people around here think it. I think Illinois' entire best half of basketball, full stop, all season happened in Lincoln.
Oh, absolutely.
They played phenomenal in the second half in that game. So anyone that watched it was basically like, okay, that's what they look like if they're this good.
And here's the thing that they have going for them too. They have Wagler, who hasn't been as great recently.
He's struggled. I don't know that he's hit like a wall per se, but he hasn't had. I mean, he was on an absolute heater when he was coming through Lincoln, because that was right after scoring 40-some points against
46,
Purdue. And so, he's not at that level. He got banged up a little bit.
But once again, stick a thermometer in middle of the season. You got a guy going off for 46 on the road against Purdue and then playing really well against Nebraska and having these big wins. It's like, oh, okay, that's a guy I want on my team in the NCAA tournament. Right. And so that carries forward. Purdue is an interesting case as well. Purdue is, I think they've looked even potentially more shaky at times. They have the identical record.
Oh, they definitely look more shaky.
They have the identical record as Illinois does. They have worse losses than Illinois does at this point in the season. However, they were preseason national championship favorites, or in that general neighborhood. So what say you about the Purdue Boilermakers, who have lost 3 out of 4 going into their final 2 regular season games?
Yeah, I have a tough time even thinking of them as like contenders at this point anymore. Like, it's hard to shake watching some of these games
I agree.
of how they've played. Again, if you go strictly off of what they look like against Nebraska, they had a really strong first half and then sort of just were very lucky to
I just don't
escape.
think, like, when I look at them as a contender, I just don't think they have enough. Like,
They don't.
I think Smith is an awesome player, and I don't think, like, people around here, once again, you're really, really, I think, we tend to think about how they played against
Sure.
Nebraska. If you watch them, like, Clough is important to what they do from an offensive perspective.
He had a monster game in Lincoln, and I watch him against all these other teams, and it's like,
I just had a buyer, and then Kaufman-Renn is good, for what he usually does. I just don't think that's enough to carry them on a really, really deep run.
What's kind of fascinating, for as many games as the core of that team has played together, you want to talk about a team that rarely ever looks connected. Like, something feels off about them at times as they're playing.
They're always running like sets on offense. Like, it's not like they're, it's not like they use it all the time.
I feel like,
and defensively, they're limited because of their athleticism. They're just not, they're not particularly athletic.
I just think their body language amongst each other is not particularly good right now either.
I'll say this. I mean, this might be a super hot take. I think Purdue under Painter, and I know they were in the national championship game a couple of years ago. Like, I just think they're destined to be. They had the best player in the country. I just think, like, this is where they're at. This is where they're supposed to be. Like a top 10, top 15 type of team every single year. He's a great coach, but their ceiling is limited in a lot of different ways because of the way they play and the type of players that they want to get. And I don't consider them a realistic national championship team.
And certainly not this year. No, out of this list, there's maybe one other team that I would put lower than them.
Who's that? Go ahead.
Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't even have to include them on the list anymore.
Yeah.
Because Toppin got hurt. So
yeah. So I like those two teams I put all the way at the bottom of this list. Like, that's, we're going to do this again in like an hour, but I mean, those are just teams I just don't have the same sort of feeling for.
Okay, let's go. Well, let's start back at the bottom, Em, so don't just go in order here. Iowa State. The Iowa State is a team that I have very, very much enjoyed, and I've saddled up to this year. I've attached my my trailer to. They are 24-6 after the loss to Arizona last night, where they didn't look particularly competitive outside of the middle stretch where they nearly closed the gap against Arizona. Lost at home to Texas Tech without Toppin on Saturday, and lost on the road to BYU. That was all after being ranked as the 4th seed by the committee when they released their thing a few weeks ago. So Iowa State, once again, another team with national championship aspirations, preseason, being thought of that way, not playing so well as of late.
Yeah, I mean, they're I think something like 6-4 in their last 10. 3 of those losses, the really quality teams, and then one of them to TCU, which is going to make the tournament, I think.
I believe so.
So
pretty close to the cut line.
Not a bad loss, but they just, again, it's weird because I don't see what you see, but I haven't watched the Iowa State that really came before. Like, when I started watching more Iowa State, it's been in the last month and a half, and that's when they've gone 6-4. And some of it is when they've lost, they look bad while doing it. Like, they got, they look bad against BYU. They didn't look good against TCU in that game. Like, and that's usually what happens when you lose, but it just looks worse than. But when they've won, like, they blew the doors off of Kansas. They took care of Houston in that game. I mean, so they're certainly a team where it's like you don't want to write them off, but it does feel like maybe they're not as shiny as they were. Certainly.
I'll tell you this. I mean, I definitely don't think they're getting that 4th one.
No, they're not going to get
obviously, because they've lost 3 out of their last 4 now. But I still continue to love their big 3 better than almost anybody in the country.
Yeah,
with Lipsy, Jefferson.
You've been very high on them.
I just think, like, I think that can carry. Like, I'll definitely take it over the Purdue 3 that I just told you with Smith and Clough and Kaufman-Renn. Like, it's better than that. It's better than most in the country, in my opinion. And so, like, they are an eye test team for me. They could lose some games, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm still gonna like this team because I think they have a little bit of everything with that. They have 3-level scoring. I mean, red hot 3-point shooting, obviously with Momcilovic and then Jefferson. Like that last night. I mean, it was a very foul-y game with Arizona. I don't like that conference, and obviously I hear the Big 12 fans talking about this, the way that it gets officiated. We talk about every conference and the way that it gets officiated, but the players are so, like large and athletic in that conference. It just feels like the floor is smaller at times. And it just felt like there was no freedom of movement last night. But that's, I'm not talking about guys pulling on guys coming off of screens. I'm talking about literally with the basketball. Dudes are just kind of getting in front of dudes on their way downhill. Because that's what Jefferson's trying to do.
Right.
Like Jefferson's just trying to get ahead of steam and go and dunk, you know.
You said something that made me wonder if conferences should have to trade officials every couple years so everybody's exposed to everyone.
It's kind of interesting.
And then it's like, because obviously I complain about Big Ten officiating all the time, regardless of sport at this point. And there's a version of me for every school and every conference. And so if you just, every 3 years you had to cycle it out. And Kelly Pfeiffer and Jeffrey Anderson are off doing games in the ACC, and you have, Big East officials in the Big Ten, and Big 12 officials are in the SEC.
Sometimes they switch every now and again when they get kicked out of their previous leagues. That happens from time to time.
Just swap them out every 3 years.
Let's do. Got a couple minutes here. Let's do. We have 3 left. We have 4 left. Let's do Nebraska because, like, I think they are a resume team. From the perspective of their resume is almost spotless. I mean, they're
very clean.
They're 25-4. Now they do lack like as many high like they call it quad 1A wins as some of the teams that they're being compared to in this category. But they have no bad losses, point blank period, at least to this moment. And I don't really know how they could have a sinking loss in the remainder of the season at this point.
They can't.
They really can't. And so, and then people watch them and they're like, oh gosh, I see some vulnerabilities. To me, like I love teams, and I don't get the sense that Nebraska plays with their food hardly at all. I just think they have a uncanny knack to be able to win basketball games. You know what I mean? And they have a switch that they could, like, I think that's different than playing with your with their food. And so I think they're dangerous in March because people will probably pick them to leave the dance early, and they've just found a lot of different ways to win.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting what it looks like if they match up with any of these other teams on this list in a tournament setting, but they're just super consistent. I mean, that's the one thing they are on this list that, and you say that after a stretch where they lost, games to Purdue and Iowa that it felt like maybe they shouldn't have, but they certainly have a clean looking resume relative to, a Kansas, but a Kansas has the really high highs and then also lost to Cincinnati.
Anybody you want to talk about outside of, so with the 3 that we have left, Houston, Kansas,
I think Houston
Michigan
is really
State.
fascinating because they lost all 3 of those sort of big marquee matchups in the last, 2 weeks? And so they're the closest comparable, like, with Nebraska. I mean, their best wins are Texas Tech, Arkansas, and BYU. Fine. They have the 3.
They also lost to Texas Tech.
Yeah. They have the 3 Q1As. They, they have 8 wins above bubble. Nebraska's 9. Like, it's just
so the point is, like, I mean, you just read off their resume. I don't care. Like
right, that's what I mean.
That's my thing. Like they are an eye test team for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be in love with them almost no matter what.
Well, and what I was gonna say is, for all of that, if you ask me which singular team on this list I would least want Nebraska to see in the second round of the NCAA, third round of the NCAA tournament, it's Houston. I think they are a nightmare matchup for Nebraska.
You'd be correct.
These other teams, like, you're not going to want to see them.
See, I don't know. Like, there's some teams that are in Houston's realm as far as I don't want to play them, but you're in the Sweet 16.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. That's part of the deal. You're going to play a good team.
Right.
But like for whatever reason, when I have watched them,
Avoid Houston.
it's just like that is just
yeah. This would be a different conversation if you were like a 7 or a 6.
sure.
And you'd be like, no, anybody but them.
Mhm.
Anybody but them is the 3 or the 2 in my region, please, dear God.
Right.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And then there's the enigma of Kansas, of course, who
I want them.
you want to play.
Yeah,
Oh, you want to play them.
absolutely.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
no part of me would be like, oh no, Nebraska plays Kansas. They're gonna have so much more talent. Like, yeah, they're gonna have more talent.
Yeah. I just don't think
You don't know what they're gonna be from like
Correct.
timeout to timeout.
right. That's the issue, and those
And I
are the
think
types
Nebraska
of teams that
excels
Nebraska
against those kind of teams.
exactly. Those are the teams that Nebraska feasts against. I
Right.
mean, it's just like they completely like the thing that Kansas lacks, that Kansas was always pretty good at having, like pre-transfer portal era, or like one when they really started taking one and dones and stuff like that. Like they were always the most connected team. Nebraska
When they were
is-
part of that FBI investigation.
before that even.
Well, no,
yeah.
before that, but certainly when they were part of it.
Yeah, like over the period of time when they were
But then
part of
nothing
it.
came out of that. Whatever.
Right, totally. Very, very normal.
Very normal.
Yeah, they were they always had that piece that they brought to the table, and now it just feels like they haven't been able to really achieve that. They are talented, but I do think Nebraska that stuff matters in a single one-on-one matchup. Now it doesn't guarantee that. I mean, best case scenario, Nebraska wins like 6 out of 10 times or something.
Right.
like that,
And this
but-
is by no means saying I would guarantee a win against any of these teams.
right.
It's just if you're like, hey, pick one, that's probably the team I'm. Purdue has really fallen off. And I think Nebraska in a second matchup with Purdue is in a much better spot to handle it. And then it's probably Kansas. With Texas Tech, we sort of just took them off, right?
Yeah, D'Lo writes in. He says, "No Texas Tech love, undefeated without their star, including at Iowa State." Maybe we shouldn't take them off. I mean, they're a team with that you probably think obviously less of without JT Toppin now. But man, I mean, they're always going to do what they do. I mean, and they have made runs in the tournament, deep runs in the tournament before. Obviously,
I mean, arguably
under
the
a
best 3
different
wins
coach.
in the country.
Yeah. And they're much more of an offensive type of team this
4
year than
wins
there
in the
are a
country?
defensive type of team, but they still have like defensive DNA, it feels like, and you really got to be tough to win in that conference. So maybe you're right, D'Lo. Maybe we shouldn't throw them out the window as easily as we just did. Debo writes in, he says Zona is the favorite this year. Yeah, I still think they're maybe like a smidge behind Duke and Michigan, but specifically Duke. Probably at this point,
Duke gets to be a smidge ahead of Michigan. Michigan's maybe a smidge ahead of Arizona.
I think that's the way I
Arizona's
look at
a
it.
large golf ahead of the next team.
I think that's pretty much the way I would describe it as well. All right, let's take a break. We will come back and talk about food next on 1620 The Zone. All right, just a quick update. During the break, I had a mini freak out about LED lights in stadiums. So, just quick rant. When will this
Joey,
end?
Get ready.
Pre-rant gong. I don't think that's ever happened before. So, I get it at basketball games, right? It's indoors. You have, stadium lighting, the ability to do different strobes and different colored lights and all these things, and you have for a very, very long time now. But over the last couple of years, as everybody has gotten the LED lights inside of the baseball stadiums and the football stadiums, which is great, by the way. I love the lights. They are bright. They illuminate everything very well. They are more cost efficient. They have the ability to, they can. It doesn't take 20 minutes for the lights to start up, like they used to at those old baseball stadiums.
Man,
I love that part of it, and I'm very happy that they exist. And I'm very happy that they're being used. However, I don't think we need we have to do the thing where we constantly want to turn them off and back on again. Touchdown. Let's turn the lights off and then turn them back on. Home run. Let's turn the lights off and there's the guy rounding around the bases and I can't see him because it's dark. That is dumb. Why do we do this?
you got a pre and a post.
Thank you.
The first time in Rant Gong history.
I don't get it. We don't have to do that. It's unnecessary.
I do have a little bit of bad news for you.
What?
Your child is going to be nearing the age where they're just going to be able to get to the light switch and then turn it off and on and off and on and off and on.
I guess so. Yeah. Like that. Even that. I'm okay with it in theory. I haven't had it happen to me much yet. But
It'll get you at one point.
I just don't like,
even when they're about to do it.
It bothers them. Like, yes, team just had a home run. Team just scored a touchdown. I'm the most excited I could ever be. The lights went out. Like it is bothersome to me.
I don't. Now that you say it like that, and I'm thinking about it from like the home run or even the touchdown perspective, I guess I don't love it as a visual when it's on a television broadcast. It doesn't look nearly as good as it would if it was just left alone. I'm trying to think if I care less if I'm actually at the event, though. Like, because I kind of get it from where you're at on the television, especially with the outdoor stuff. But if I'm at the event, I feel like I don't mind it.
Yep.
So
I do.
It's very much I think, visual for me with the television.
Okay. We got a couple minutes here. This is something that I tweeted about last night, and I'd like to talk about right now. One of those tweets happened that it could have been from weeks or months ago, or I'm sure it's a recycled tweet from 5 years ago or whatever. It was this, if you're watching along, it's on YouTube. One's gotta go. And it's just the lineup of all the Gardettos. The mini breadstick, the rye chip, the square pretzel, the corn checks, the wheat checks, and the circle pretzel. Which one are you eliminating from your checks? And then I have another small rant on this afterwards.
I think I'm getting rid of one of the pretzels.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're the exact same thing, and they're just
I don't need two of them, so I'm probably just getting rid of the circle.
And I think the corn checks and the wheat checks they balance each other out.
I initially was like, I guess I could get rid of a checks, but they have different.
They're different.
They're different. So
yes,
I'm getting rid of the circle pretzel just so everything else remains relatively square except for the rye chip.
That I believe is the correct choice, because what people don't understand is balance is important in the bag of Gardettos. And then I see in stores that you could just buy a bag of rye chips and people will go crazy for it. Now, I love the rye chips as much as anybody else. I do. I love the mini. I would eat a whole bag of them. I would eat a whole bag of the mini breadsticks. I would eat a whole bag of pretzels, and I certainly have before. But I disagree with their existence. Gardettos are Gardettos because of the mix of the Gardettos. It is the mix that achieves the Gardettos of the bag of Gardettos. You don't like if we just say I only want one of their Gardettos, then they're not Gardettos anymore. I don't like people just can't like they don't understand, first of all, balance, and they also don't understand how sometimes you got to fight through a little bit of the crap to get to the good stuff. And the popcorn tin and the mix at the end of the year, maybe you'll probably eat around the caramel a little bit. but that makes the cheese, the white cheddar cheese and the orange one, a little bit better. In the bag of Starburst, yeah, you might have to eat some yellow ones, but it makes the pink ones better.
Yeah, and so you bringing up the Starburst thing, like they have like the all red bag or whatever, and they have like I don't understand why we need these either, in large part because I'm very much in agreement with it. It all works off of each other. If you wanted it individually, then it doesn't have the same value to me.
Thank you.
And I would
We agree.
part of it for me is I would never just want a bag of rye chips. Like I like the rye chip in relation to everything else that's in there.
Exactly. I was going to tell people, hey man, you go ahead, you buy that bag of rye chips. That's really, really cool. Tell me how your mouth feels afterwards.
You know what I want to do after I get the bag of rye chips? I'm going to get the bag of mini breadsticks. I'm going to get the bag of Chex.
Pour them all into each other.
I'm like, oh, hey, this is better.
And then you have mega Gardettos.
Exactly. No, I am very, I'm very much like if it's a mix, I want all of the mix because it works together. I think mixes in general are underrated by people as snacks because you get stuff like you get the flavor blend that you're looking for instead of just isolation. We do too much isolation. We need the mixture.
What a take by Schaefer. Excellent. That take was made for me. All right. We'll be back 7:00 hour coming up on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back. Just after 7:03 to be exact, here on Happer and Schaefer, 1620 The Zone, and on 1620thezone.com. Connor Happer, Mike Schaefer, Joey Colbert with you this morning. As you start your commutes, just beware a little bit of rain. That's right, rain.
Watch out for semis.
Wow, yeah, well, because they might spray you with water. If
They
you're
might
going by.
T-bone you on your way into work.
Jeez, no, they definitely will not.
That almost happened to me on my way over here this morning.
My goodness, a semi.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think you should watch out for semis at all times.
Yeah.
That is a good practice.
Just to be clear.
I was passing through 72nd and Pacific. This semi was trying to turn into the middle lane turning right on a red light, and I had the green light.
You gotta watch out.
Yeah,
you gotta.
Yeah, I was not real.
The
happy.
whole point of turning right on red is that you have to look and see if anybody is coming.
Yeah, this person didn't
so I
even
think
stop.
You were
they
about
just,
to T-bone the semi, from what it sounds.
No, they were about to T-bone me because I was already in the intersection. They were moving. They were moving through.
This should probably be saved for I have an opinion, but do you guys have a stoplight that you think is the most ran red light that you experience in Omaha?
I got one. I got one that I don't like because it takes forever for it to turn green. Well, I'll save for it on Thursday.
Okay, I don't think that was the question.
No,
so
it's so basically over here on this 52nd and Dodge.
Yeah,
people run that thing like 10 seconds late
because
I get very nervous crossing that street.
So are you talking about Happy Hollow down there? Like
no, I'm talking 52nd and Dodge, just a stoplight that's right up.
It also happens on 50th and Dodge as
right
well.
over here.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because it's a very, very small intersection.
And people just feel super comfortable running that thing late. Like I get very nervous crossing that, even when it's been green for like a full 3 seconds.
Which is bad because the people who are going north and south, I mean, they're likely turning on to Dodge blindly because the corners are so tight at that intersection.
There's always something blocking it.
If you are running, if you're running the light, then you better keep your head on a swivel. The advice would be just don't follow all the traffic laws. That's what the lights are there for. All right, so we are back. Hopefully everybody's okay out there. Definitely don't get T-boned by any semis.
Please don't get T-boned.
Please don't.
It's a good word of advice to the people. So spring ball continues on for Nebraska football. They will have some folks available to the media tomorrow. We'll get to meet some, let me see here. Glenn Thomas, EJ Barthel, and a few players will be available tomorrow, and then they'll have the coordinators available post-practice on Saturday. So curious to hear what comes out of either of those. Certainly some interesting questions for EJ Barthel, the running backs coach, and then Glenn Thomas. How do you like Calandria and all those different things? So that talk will heat up a little bit over the course of this week. But overall, I think most people would agree that it has been it's been a pretty tamped down spring in terms of the enthusiasm. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, for the record. And you throw in the fact that it's a little bit early and Nebraska basketball is having the success that they're having. It's making for a very, very quiet spring around.
They haven't had any real visibility at this point, have they?
They're doing their videos, with the.
But I mean, like media that isn't Nebraska Cornhusker Matt Rule media.
Not that I
has
can
not had
think
their
of.
visibility yet, right?
No, there's no McAfee show appearance or. Is that what you were referring to?
No, more like have they had their pre-shooting? Have they done all of that? Has the media been able to go for the 30 minutes? And
I see what you're saying. No, and I don't know if it's in the plans. I'm not sure if they'll do that at all. Wouldn't be surprised.
Amazing.
Why is that bad?
To basically go from, they usually have 3 or 4 of them every spring, to go from that to none of them until the spring game would be quite a dramatic turnaround. In large part because people use those because they need photos of the new players.
That is true. People need photos.
I guess if Nebraska's just going to provide stock photos for everyone, which I'm sure maybe they do that now, but that's part of it because you just haven't been able to put eyes on anybody.
That's true.
You haven't, part of why there's a dampened enthusiasm, if you would be that you haven't had people haven't been able to go watch it. And so then they can't be like, oh, this guy looks like this and this guy looks like that.
That's true, but at the same time, like I don't think they're complaining about the lack of enthusiasm. In fact, I think they're probably relishing it at this point.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
I'm just explaining like sort of where some of that comes from is when you can't see any of it other than just what they're putting out.
Like I said, maybe it's by design. I mean, you know, I think there's probably something to that. So with that being said, with that being the sort of preamble, I guess, to this conversation, I wonder, like, what, given that there is some, I don't know, anytime we talk about Nebraska football these days, it's met with a good share of negativity, I feel like. So
you talk about Gargettos, it's sometimes met with negativity.
That is true. There's a lot of things that are just met with negativity in this world that we live in. But our question to you is, what do you want to hear about? Like, what do you want? How do you want this discussed? I like, we could talk about the quarterback and how different that's going to make everything every single day, and all the transfers that they brought in and you know, whatever it might be. But I don't think there's going to be much of, like, you know, I think people have smartened up to the fact that every transfer they get isn't going to be the greatest player of all time. And they've smartened up to every freshman that they get isn't going to be the greatest player of all time in 3 years, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I just wonder where that leaves us as it pertains to this particular spring.
Yeah, and it's tough because you want to be able to provide rationale, you want to be able to provide analysis, whatever it is. And I'm sort of at the point where it's like, okay, I want to talk about what people want us to talk about, but
what do they want us to talk about?
I also am not interested in rehashing Matt Rule should be fired. That's not going to happen. Like, that is not happening right now today. So I can't have that conversation right now today.
Right.
So, you know, I'm looking for what people want to have discussed in the off season, or if it matters, you know, that's the other part of it. How much of it, when you hear some of these quotes from these players, means something to you? Like, do you care if Owen Chambliss, who played for Rob Orich out at San Diego State, is talking about how, in his opinion, the defense is about 97% the same in terms of what they're supposed to do and what he's asking them to do and all of that? Like, does that matter given how successful that defense was at Idaho and then at San Diego State and everything else? Or is that considered like spring hype and you aren't interested in that? Like, part of it for us, Connor, is we have to kind of like learn or figure out or try to thread this needle of how do we have these conversations, but then not be accused of being the hype machine.
It's funny because, I mean, it's a great point, and you're right. Like, it's always been so simple to me, you know. Like, let's use Calandria as an example. Like, I think what we're seeing and what we're hearing every time they talk about Calandria is that he is vastly different from Dylan Raiola, right?
And TJ Lateef.
We can see that in his tape from UNLV and from Virginia, and we can hear it in the way that the coaches talk about him and all those different things. And then, like, I think where we get caught up in the you know, the junk sometimes is just because he's different means he's going to be better. I don't think that's the case. Like, I think it's very fascinating to me to parse through the positives and negatives and the ceilings of the floors and the floors of what Calandria, when you stick him in there, like what that does to the entirety of the offense. But and so I think it's okay that people are like, yeah, I'm not going one way or the other on him at this point. Now I do think it's probably, I don't know, frustrating is the right word. But it's clear to me that there is a negative twinge to everything right now. And so when you talk about Calandria, it's like, well, he's got some turnover problems, and they're just like, well, let's just maximize that trait to the 1,000%. It's like you have a dial and a knob on negative traits and positive traits, and you just turn up the negative ones a lot. Like, he has positive traits as well. But I don't want to get into the world of like, is it going to be better?
Yeah.
We're going to give you reasons it could be. We're going to give you reasons it could be worse.
I almost feel like we need some kind of sounder when we decide to talk about off-season football anymore. And it just like explains Happer and Schaefer are about to go through a range of outcomes
Yeah.
that could occur for Nebraska football. So when they discuss Anthony Calandria, it is within the range of outcomes that him being a little bit different than Dylan Raiola or providing energy or having the ability to make plays off schedule could help Nebraska's offense. And here's why.
That's a very normal thing to
It's
say.
not to say they're definitely going to be better because
Right.
they have a different person at quarterback and he's not going to do all the same things that Dylan did poorly. It's just, that's part of it is the nuance of having this is there are reasons, like legitimate reasons, Nebraska football could be better as a program because of changes that were made this offseason.
Yep.
You have to
and
be
because
open
of
to that
things,
idea.
and because of things that stayed the same too.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. I mean, I if you are looking for positivity, and I got an email from Kevin on the Equitable Bank inbox, give me a reason to be pumped for Huskers spring football. You can't. Well, I can't necessarily give you a reason to be pumped for spring football in particular, because frankly, I don't think anybody should be ever pumped for spring football, but that's a different thing. But people are looking for reasons to be pumped for Nebraska football in general. Number one, the season is 6 months away at this point, so it's a little bit difficult. But I would tell you the thing that lingers in the background of all this, and like I said, we'll talk about this later in the show, is the fact that they maintain, for as much as they changed, they maintained a lot of continuity and they got a lot of players back, and they're going to get a lot of production back this season. Nobody, like, that's a hard thing to talk about because it's sort of boring, right? And it takes out this giant swath of ceiling versus floor.
Right.
But what we want and what we have wanted for a long time around here is to raise the floor. And, you know, for all the stuff about Matt Rule, I think I think that is one thing that has happened in his 3 years here. The floor has been raised. And I think that's going to continue this year.
Yeah.
I really do, because of what they're bringing back. And
Continuity and consistency, two things that have not existed at Nebraska in a while.
And that is not, admittedly, I think that's not the one thing, but that is one of the biggest things that this particular team has going for it. And at the same time, it's not sexy to talk about.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where the rubber meets the road on the whole, like, hype, not hype conversation. I love that quality about this team, but it's not real sexy.
I just think the biggest thing for me is that there has to at least, like, if you want to listen to these conversations, you have to at least have the ability to consider that there can be improvements.
Yes, like you do.
You can't come into the conversation convinced that you know the outcome of the situation already. Now, you might be like, hey, they've gone 7-6 the last 2 years and 5-7 the year before it. Why should I feel any different? And then the schedule and all these other things. I get that. But we know that sports are not exclusively played on what happened previously. And
hopefully,
if all you're worried about is what happened previously, then you should look at this past offseason as a good thing, in that they made seismic changes in very important ways. They have a different quarterback. They have a different defensive structure. They brought in different players in key spots on both sides of the line.
And those were out of necessity too.
Yeah,
like if
they had to.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had
the
to
way
evolve.
the way the defense went at the end of last year, and really for the majority of last year, it had to be changed. It needed a new leader. I think Rule has even, partially admitted, like, that was basically a mistake in the first place of how they did it last year. All right, problem addressed. Doesn't mean it's going to be a lot better, but like, that was the first step. That had to happen. Debo writes in on YouTube, I wonder what you think about this, Schaefer. He says 1,000% floor has been raised, and there's finally continuity, and this fan base wants to do is disrupt. Like, I think there will be some people who find their greatest source of optimism inside of the changes. And it sounds like you might. My greatest source of optimism comes from the continuity, I think that's sort of where I land. And it doesn't,
much like a good bag of Gardettos, it's a blend.
It is.
I mean, it's
Nice.
clearly a blend. It's certainly not just because of Rob Arch or any of that. It's in a lot of ways, it's Rob Orich plus players that have been in this system.
Definitely.
It's Anthony Calandria and wide receivers that I'm tired of seeing wasted in, hopefully there's a change in that regard.
Jeep Wade and 3 new offensive linemen.
Right. And so it's like this sort of, if there's an area where I'm just overwhelmingly negative, it's the running backs. And it's largely just been that way for a decade.
Hey,
and I don't think that's a me problem because I've been right.
So,
and last year I was excited and I was right.
Speaking of that, I've been pretty much in lockstep with you on that. So EJ Barthel is going to talk tomorrow. Is there anything that he could say where you won't be like, boo,
boo hiss?
Yeah. And I'm not talking about you in particular.
No,
I'm talking about just the royal you.
I want someone to explain how you base your future decision off of 3 drives against a bad rush defense in the bowl game.
They need to stop saying that. They need to stop saying that that's the reason why they ran that back. Just say that we wanted to run it back and we like the guys. Don't say it was because they had 3 good drives in the bowl game. Like, come on.
Like, I just there's elements of this that I just feel like you're lying or you're trying to gaslight everyone when you're constantly saying, we really like these guys. We just never played them in critical situations or when it mattered. And maybe it's like we couldn't afford to take Emmett off the field. Say that. Like, just be bluntly honest about it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, they weren't as good as Emmett. We had to have Emmett on the field in every situation because we just weren't good enough.
Now, what if the real reason why they didn't, and Dana hinted at this, but he did it in the wrong way, in my opinion. Like, what if the reason is they just didn't want to invest in the position the way the market told them that they had to, right? Dana said, hey, look, at a certain point we just ran out of spots. We had to start cutting people. Like, that I don't think is true. but it's pretty clear through 3 years now how they approach the position from a money perspective. They're moneyballing the position. Like,
which is what NFL teams and people do.
Is it okay to say that?
I think you can say that, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you're doing it in practice, you need to be good at it.
That's true.
Like, so some of it, this is the whole running back conversation is difficult for me because you get into this, well, you're not giving them credit for what they did with Emmett Johnson. And then at the same time, I think Emmett Johnson fell in their lap, so they ignored him for 2 seasons in a row, and then he made them pay him so they couldn't ignore him anymore. And then he went out and was the best player on this team by a substantial margin.
For a long time.
And so, like, if that's the case, what am I giving them credit for? Doing what was blatantly obvious for everyone in the stadium except them for a stretch of time in 2024? Like, doing what, giving the ball to your best player, you don't get a ribbon for that. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You know what else you're supposed to do? You take the All-American and you recruit off of it. You go get a better player to put in that position. And if they think Mekhi Nelson's that guy, fine. I can't do anything other than wait and see if they're going to be correct on it.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm not interested in? I'm not interested in hearing next September or October or whatever some excuse as to why this didn't work.
See, that's the thing. Like, I think they know that this is a giant roll of the dice, what they're doing.
And they're betting on their line. They're not betting on the running back.
Good point.
And so that,
that's a safer bet.
If they would just say some of this, I think I could accept it more rather than me having to read through the tea leaves. It'd be a little bit better if they're like, for us to get better in the running back room, we decided to get better on the offensive line. Say that, boom, done.
Yeah.
Like, I can accept that a little bit more than we like what we have. We love Quentin Ives. He didn't play for 11 games. Do they not understand how stupid that sounds?
I think they're coming. I don't think so, first of all, to answer your question. And I think they're trying to find any reason that they possibly can for people to, like, first of all, just accept what they're doing. And I think the bigger picture thing with all that, Schaefer, is, like, people are going to not stop asking about it. They're going to ask about it, and they're going to ask about it, and they're going to ask about it, and they're going to keep coming up with reasons. And some of the reasons are real, and some of the reasons just flat out aren't. But the bigger picture issue for me is, like, why do you guys care what other people think so much? Like, why is this such a contentious issue now? People are going to keep asking about it, just like they would if they see a deficiency at any position, period. Like, they're going to keep asking about Calandria because they haven't seen him play before. They're going to keep asking about Mekhi Nelson because they haven't seen him play before.
You could argue,
and people are just and they just need to be like, yeah, like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is the way we're going to do it.
You could argue that they got into this position at running back because they didn't care what people thought, and they recruited way off of the board.
Maybe.
And then now this is what they have to show for it.
Yeah, maybe.
Which could work really well. I'm not guessing that it's going to work really well. I'm guessing it's going to be serviceable. The problem is you had great. And so if you're going to go from great to serviceable at running back, you got to get great somewhere else. If this offense, which wasn't even good last year, Dana Holgerson, if you're going to be good, you've got to figure out how else that's going to happen.
Remember, they have to be good, not good. All right, let's take a break. I want to get some of your thoughts on that. 402-951-1620. And a quick reminder before we do, by the way, the Girl Scout cookie season is here, ladies and gentlemen. And if you would like to win Girl Scout cookies for a year, you could enter on our website, 1620thezone.com, to win, once again, Girl Scout cookies for a year. Enter before Sunday night. Do it now, 1620thezone.com. One more running back question from the YouTube chat. Here's Bada Bing. How much better would you feel about the running back room if Kenneth Williams was still here? Not much for me. I mean, because he never, what, he'd take a couple carries at running back over the last couple of years. I wouldn't really change my outlook.
No, it wouldn't change the room as a whole for me. I'd feel better if they went out and got like someone that even had FCS level production at a reasonably high level. I mean, that's what Iowa did. I mean, there's so many options that didn't probably cost as much as was discussed. I mean, here's the thing: like they spent their money in other ways, which is fine. Just from talking with Tim, and Tim is all over this. They started the portal with the idea of, hey, we're going to go get a running back.
Yeah.
And then very quickly pivoted off of that. And I think pivoted to, hey, we are probably just going to go get the best offensive line that we can assemble and manufacture our run game as well as we can that way.
I mean, we asked him directly last week, and Tim was like, yeah, I think that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Right. And so,
which would tell you that, yeah, they were interested in upgrading the position and then didn't end up doing it.
And that's part of the thing with the portal. Like, Nebraska went into it like, hey, we've got a big pot of money and we're going to go get us a big defensive lineman. And they did not.
Have you seen our big pot of money?
Yeah. Do you want to come check out our campus? We got this pot of money.
Big campus.
We don't have a big defensive line coach.
Big new facility.
And they're like, we're good.
We're
going to go to Texas Tech.
Seems like
we're going to go to these other places.
Oh, they probably found bigger pots of money.
They found big pots of money there too, but it's not just that. Like, oh, do I want to go somewhere where they've routinely developed a defensive lineman? They've gone to the NFL, or do I want to go here where they're on their third defensive line coach in 3 years? They haven't even hired him yet.
You got to start somewhere. Nebraska's got to do a little bit better with the.
They need their best things have to happen on the defensive line with guys that were here last year.
Agreed completely.
Like, you need Van Poppel and Winery and even a guy like Tyson Terry, and I know he was hurt last year, but you need some of those guys to flash and continue to play well, and to have the Nash Hutmaker, Ty Robinson like ascension, because I don't think you're going to get it from Jashir Whittington or from Staubmeyer or these other guys. Like, Dylan Berryman is a while away, probably, because it's hard to be a freshman defensive lineman. But like Malcolm Simpson, that was a guy they loved. Like, could he flash very quickly? It's a possibility.
Yeah, you got to have some dudes make jumps. And once again, we'll talk about
big development,
returning big men in just a little while here. Let's take a quick exit ramp to Nebraska basketball tonight on the West Coast at Pauley Pavilion, historic Pauley Pavilion. You know, people always say, I want to go see a game at Pauley Pavilion. And then I hear people say that they went to a game at Pauley Pavilion. They were like, That's pretty much how I feel about all the West Coast venues. Like, historical, nice, cool, different, but ultimately,
Would they feel better if there was more than 14 people there?
Yes, they would feel a lot better, but that's not possible. People on the West Coast just don't support sports teams anymore, it doesn't seem.
It does.
They got better things to do.
Apparently, they have better things to do or don't want to fight traffic.
I think it's a lot of the traffic.
It's amazing. Traffic.
You hear people talk, like, the Dodgers are insanely popular from like a television standpoint, and their broadcast rights are really expensive. And then you ask anybody out there, and like, yeah, I'd like to go to a game, but I don't have 7 hours to sit in the parking lot afterwards.
Ridiculous.
And there's like nowhere else for you to park, so you have to park in this.
Yeah, it's surrounded by the giant parking lot of all parking lots.
And it's basically an event to get out of the parking lot.
I mean,
you go to a baseball game and you leave in a maze.
I have enough of a problem with traffic trying to get out of the CHI Health Center after a Creighton game. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. So tonight at UCLA, by the way, you will likely be watching on television. So enjoy the dulcet tones of Carlo Jimenez and Don McLean, American Pie.
Don.
He's taking the Chevys back to the levee again tonight. And Carlo Jimenez, I believe, is the voice of the Clippers, the radio voice of the Clippers. Although they call him like the audio voice, I guess, of the Clippers nowadays. Anyway,
will you tell some T. Lou stories?
Maybe they'll have some pictures from when the Nebraska ball contingent went to the Clippers game the other night. But UCLA is the team. This is the this is the challenge game. I think this is the one that everybody sort of circled of like, all right, it's possible that Nebraska loses this one tonight. So it's probably circled for them, and we'll see how it goes getting through it and all of those different things. I wanted to talk about and then obviously we'll have whatever Mick Cronin says afterwards, which we'll react to, I'm sure tomorrow morning. So it's an important one. But as our version of talking about Nebraska basketball today, I've heard the conversation this week about who is the most important guy. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Have we weighed in on it really much?
No, we've had some offshoot of this conversation probably 4 times, not like in that direct of a tone, but sort of who's, Sam Hoiberg is really valuable because of X and, things like that.
Yeah. So I have been I think Price Sanford is their most, their most.
He's certainly, since Big Ten play, has been
irreplaceable guy. Yeah. I mean, obviously some of this is what they've done recently as well. It has his volume has gone up and he's maintained the same efficiency and all those different things. So I've seen a variation of this conversation over the last couple of days. So what I did was I used our friends over at cbbanalytics.com and I sorted Big Ten players on the offensive and defensive player rating scale. And it is not like it's not the end all be all because you could get value from a variety of different places. But here's what I came up with. If you're watching along with this on YouTube, and I highlight this is every Big Ten player on this graph on the offensive and defensive efficiency scale. And I highlighted the guys the dots that are standing out. Those are guys from Illinois, Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue, I think. And maybe there's one more team in there. But yeah. That's all of them. So the contending Big Ten teams. And hilariously, you obviously want to be in that top right quadrant if you are an important offensive player and an important defensive player. And there in the red, number 1, that is indeed Sam Hoiberg, who is really standing out from the list. He is right next to Merez Johnson from Michigan and Yaxel Landenborg from Michigan as well, who I'm pretty sure is going to win Conference Player of the Year. Sam Hoiberg right next to him in offensive and defensive efficiency. And then Price Sanford, you could see that red dot with the PS 21, right in that same sort of range. If you're in the top right quadrant, you're a really good Big Ten player. And certainly both Price and Sam are. But Sam is the one who stands out amongst the pack for Nebraska.
And it makes sense in what his value is in terms of offensive efficiency with the assists to the, against the turnovers, with the fact that he's a fairly high percentage shooter, right? Like he's not, one of the things, he's not a volume play. And that's sometimes an argument where it's like, hey, it'd be better if you could get him to take a few more shots here or to drive to the hole more.
He's a 39% 3-point shooter. He's like 2% behind Price.
And I think he's been a little cold lately. And so he was even higher at one point in this season. And so he's been really consistent with that. He's finishing at the rim this year in a way that was never happening before.
Correct.
In part, never happening because he didn't feel like he had the aggressiveness to try. He would do the drive into the lane and then just sort of stop with the ball and have to kick it out. And that was problematic because it felt like the offense would kind of collapse on itself. Now he's driving in and you have to either defend it, you collapse on him and he's kicking it out, or he's just quick enough sometimes to just get it up and under some of these defenders.
It's fascinating. I think obviously the argument is just the volume, right? So that's why I would say Price is so important, because I just think he's so central to what they're doing. But you could make all the same arguments with Sam, although he's not as prolific of I suppose he is as prolific as a 3-point shooter, but just not as much volume. He's got more than 100 less attempts than him this season from the 3-point line. But, Price is just, a little bit more athletic. He's got the ability to finish a little
longer.
bit,
he can
a
shoot
little bit
in
better.
different angles.
He is definitely, a key to what they're doing on defense. But everything I just said, aside from the volume, applies to Sam Hoiberg as well. And so now the thing that people sort of struggle with, and I've heard, I've heard the conversation framed up this way, like who is more difficult to replace should one of them not be here next year. And like, that's just a matter of sort of like the marketplace and all those different things. Off face, it feels like there's a lot of Sam Hoibergs walking around. But I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Like he's such a special player in terms of how much energy he gives. And I think a player like Sam is only recreatable in the sense that he's been here like for 4 years already. That doesn't come like you can't recreate that overnight.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really an important thing to think about. Price, this is his first year here.
Right.
And so just imagine what he's going to be like when he returns next year. I mean, he's going to be as important, if not more so, of a player.
The closest replacement level to Sam Hoiberg, and people might roll their eyes at this, is also on that graphic.
Oh, should I bring it back up? Here it is.
Yeah, it's the CJ right there. Like that's his role next year is going to expand.
That would be
and
Kale.
be a lot of very similar. Now they're different, but there's some similarities there. Kale is also very good at limiting turnovers. Kale has proved to be a pretty effective passer and has gotten a lot better in terms of getting into the post and finding ways to score. He's wildly creative. I don't know that he gets enough credit for that. And he's made himself into being a really effective guy off of the bench. And so, if your replacement for Sam Hoiberg is Cale Jacobson, you're going to take a little bit of a loss.
It's a great place to start, though.
But you've got a lot to build off of from there.
Well, he's got more size. He's got, like
if he can,
he's probably not the offensive player that
this is a
Sam
seismic. He's not the shooter. He's certainly not that shooter, but he's been effective at the corner. Shooting threes. If he can
still
take
a third, he is still a 36% 3-point shooter. I mean, it's very low
very
volume.
Efficient.
Yeah.
They're very efficient. If he can take like half of the jump that Sam Hoiberg made going into his senior year, but you have the more physical traits with it, that's a really interesting player that you're going to be throwing in alongside, you hope, Sanford and Frager and whatever else you pull out of the portal.
The other thing you sort of notice, and here I'll pull the dots back up.
I
here.
love this graphic, though I'm a little sad that you didn't feel like you needed to include my guy Braden Smith.
He's
I'm assuming he's just dot over here.
He's in the middle.
He's in the middle.
He's close to the
buried?
middle in the top right quadrant. He's buried underneath the GH24 from Purdue.
Gotcha.
You can see the 3 there.
Yeah, there's the 3 right below him in black and gold.
Oh, you can see that.
But I think the thing that you sort of notice that jump, and once again, this is the dots that pop out are just from the top 5 teams in the league. So once again, Michigan, Nebraska, Michigan State, Purdue, and Illinois. But the thing that you notice is all of Nebraska's rotational players, all of Nebraska's players, so Sam Hoiberg, Price Sanford, Braden Frager, Cale Jacobson, Berkay, Mast, and Lawrence, they're all on the further to the right side of this, which means they are defensive, oriented type of players. And then their offense is the variance, but none of them are particularly low. Berkay and Jamarcus Lawrence are the lowest 2 on there. And Mast is hilariously the 3rd lowest on there. That's how much he's sort of, gone down the season, but he's not a black hole defensively like you might seem, I guess, sort of.
Oh, I don't think he's been a black hole defensively. I think it's more that he's just been super inefficient offensively.
Right. But I never thought much of him as a defender. You know what I mean?
I think he's kind of been better at holding. Well, I remember what he did against Edey in that game a couple years ago. Like he's had some moments.
Yeah.
But he's not a rim protector. Like that's the thing about him.
Right.
And you constantly feel like he should have more rebounds than 5 a game.
I just would have thought, based off of watching him, that he'd be a lot closer to the middle of the defensive line than he is on the right. And he's halfway down the line on the right. So the Nebraska players are sort of on the right side, defensive heavy. The Illinois players are obviously back to the middle on defense, but higher on offense. And the Michigan players are in the same place as Nebraska players are for the most part. Those are the yellow dots on the sheet there. Michigan State sort of scattered in there too. It's sort of fascinating. You get a really good look
Great
at
graph.
you get a really good look at, I love this website, by the way. I was playing around with this for an hour last night during the Arizona game.
This is your new between the sheets.
Kind of. It's a lot of fun to look at.
Oh,
You
I
could,
bet. I mean, I appreciate you putting this together because it kind of paints a pretty vivid picture as to where and why Nebraska's done what they have.
cbbanalytics.com, by the way. All right, we'll take a break. So Nebraska and UCLA tonight at 10:00, maybe even a few minutes after. We'll be back with the headlines after this on 1620 The Zone. All right, 7:50 here on a Tuesday. Happer and Schaefer, 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com. Plenty to come today. We'll be joined by Mitch Sherman in just a little over a half hour. Jacob Padilla will join us to talk Blue Jays and high school. Dude, did you see the high school district play just popping off last night? I can't wait to talk about this with Jacob at 9:15.
The most that I know
It was crack-a-lackin'.
is that the Lynx took out Creighton Prep,
Yeah.
and that was a big one.
Who I believe was slated to get a wild card.
Yeah, well, they were
So-
one of the top points.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But I saw
There's only one wild card.
I know it was from Sauter, but I saw this where basically, or Mike Sauter, for those that don't know, but I think Creighton Prep has lost 3 straight years in
So
the
Lincoln teams in
the
the district
district final
final
at
at home.
which is remarkable.
This is, because that never was fathomable a few years ago. Like Lincoln teams, first of all, just getting into state period and then coming to Omaha and winning district finals. I mean, they've done a lot of it.
You know this really well because you've been on courtside for calls of it. One of the sort of, I don't even know if it's underrated, so I hesitate to use that word. I don't know that I need to call it sneaky fun, but if you could just like go down to Lincoln if you have the time and just hang out and watch the state basketball
Semifinal
tournaments,
Friday.
it is awesome. Yeah, my friends love just going on Friday.
It's great.
And this
That's
is
where you get
actually-
the best games too.
This might be the first year in a while where I can actually just go do it. Like get done with our show. I head down to Lincoln. I'm just there for the afternoon sessions. I might go do that this year.
That's fun.
It is a ton of fun.
I would use, by the way, I would use that same reasoning to convince you, although I don't think you need much convince you to go to Madison Square Garden for semifinal Friday night in the Big East.
I mean,
that
it's
is a
it's the
dream.
same
as far as I
idea.
understand,
That
we're
is a dream.
broadcasting from New York next.
That's
next
right.
spring,
We said that
so
out loud.
You had mentioned it to me, and I was like, "Well, why would I say no to this?" So
Cool. We'll be there.
it'll be great.
All right, Joey, we got headlines. What do we have?
First one, missing Florida man found at sand plant stuck shoulder deep in mud. Officials compared to quicksand.
Whoa. I didn't know that was real.
Can you say that again?
Missing Florida man found at sand plant stuck shoulder deep in mud. Officials compared to quicksand.
So
Sand plant is what
Sand
was throwing
plant.
me off.
Sand
Yeah.
plant.
It's the place sand plant.
No, I get it now. But when you first said it, I was like, this sounds like a tongue twister.
I am interested.
I am too.
I am interested.
But I
will
feel
say.
like yesterday when I was like, all right, we're going to pick this one, but tell us the next headline. Joey dropped one on us. So
Yeah.
we reserved a right to come back to number one.
Okay.
What's the headline for 2?
Police arrested suspect East Bay serial donut robber.
Serial donut robber.
I mean, I have personal interest in learning about donut robberies. But I think we got to go back to the quicksand, right?
I agree. I don't want to unlock fears for people. This sounds like a mildly scary situation, but I do want to. I do.
Don't worry. This happened in California.
But does it
That-
end well? He's okay. He's rescued. He's not.
The quicksand guy.
Yeah. He I believe he's
All right,
rescued.
everything's fine. Okay, let's do it. Let's click. Just want to make sure.
Okay, authorities have found a Florida man who went missing on Valentine's Day, shoulder deep in muck. Authorities have likened the quicksand. First responders in Palatka located Andrew Giddens on Thursday, February 26, alive at the Vulcan Materials Company in Melrose, but caught in a thick substance that made it impossible for him to move. Giddens' relatives, who reported him missing, explained to police that he had become depressed in the wake of a recent breakup. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office said in a statement that Giddens, 36, who lives in Jacksonville, was stuck up to his shoulders in the mud in a borrow pit at the sand plant site. Giddens spoke to first responders and told him that he hadn't consumed any food or water in days just because he was stuck over there. Officers looking for the missing man found his car near the sand plant on Monday, February 23rd. Searchers then fanned out, combing the industrial site in search of the missing man, according to the sheriff's statement. Workers spent 3 hours freeing Giddens from the muck. Once freed, he was rushed to the hospital where doctors expect him to make a full recovery.
Okay, well, it feels like he may have put himself here on purpose, which is not, because I was just trying to figure out, okay, what in the world, what happened here?
And it feels like they were citing some like mental health stuff here in the story that I'm reading anyway. And it feels like he may have like put himself here on in harm's way on purpose here. So I'm glad, number one, that he got out. I was more interested in the quicksand part. This just feels like a sad guy.
Yeah, I'm fascinated because his last known contact was on February 14th, but then he was found on February 26th.
Like across the country as well,
Yeah,
right?
So I guess part of it to me is how long was he in the quicksand?
Great question.
Because he had said for several days, like that's a 12-day, he'd be dead had it been like, that entire 12 days span without water.
Fire department
food.
said that he had been stuck in the mud for several days without
Yeah.
food
So
or
I'm
water
gonna
while
guess
the area
3 days
faced
of just
freezing
being
temperatures.
stuck.
Yeah. Additionally, due to the instability of the ground, responders had to progress slowly so that they would not sink. After more than 2 hours, he was finally freed on Thursday. But like you said, Schaefer, who knows how long he was actually in there?
What does that do to your physical body? You're just stuck in a position for that long.
This is sort of interesting too. Deputies found that his car they found his car on February 23rd, and that had previously found him trespassing on different Vulcan Materials property in 2023.
Yep.
So he just likes to go to this Vulcan Materials property and I don't know, like be lost there. It's very
I mean, I have
interesting.
theories that I probably shouldn't say on air.
Probably.
But,
Yeah.
No.
Usually, if you're trespassing at a materials site,
Kind of
but-
interesting. I wonder what else is at a materials site or what you could
I
create
wonder.
out of some materials. All right. Thank you, Joey. Those are the headlines. We will come back. 8:00 hour coming up on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back. Just after 8:03 on a Tuesday morning. Happy March as the rain is here. Maybe it'll make things smell good. Maybe it'll make the leaves start to bud a little bit. Who knows?
There was definitely the post-rain smell on the drive-in. It was nice.
I like that.
It's one of those where you haven't had it in a while, and then it just kind of hits. You're like, oh yeah, the after the rain smell.
It smells good.
Yeah,
It
it's a
smells
good
like
smell.
spring. It doesn't smell bad, at least, which is helpful. All
I
right.
don't think Omaha smells bad aside from Skunkville, which either they've moved on or I haven't smelled skunks in the morning in a little while.
Yeah,
So,
it's been a couple weeks since
Yeah.
the last time.
The skunks moved somewhere else. Is this what you're saying? The skunks have
Hopefully.
migrated. I
maybe.
never smelled the skunks, to be fair,
Yeah, but I think you were in the minority on that one.
but I'm a good smeller. I smell things.
I can
You
smell your
can
breakfast
smell
currently.
this bowl that I have.
I'm intrigued
It
by
smells delicious.
by what this is going to be for you.
I don't have any clue, but I saw something at Costco that said egg roll bowl or something like that. And I was like, all right, no, I have
Sign me up.
no further questions. I'll take 3 of them. Thank you.
Why not? It's Taste Test Tuesday.
That is the thing with Costco. You don't just get away with trying one or a small amount of anything.
That's true.
You've got to get a larger version of
I was thinking about that as I walked through the store the other day. I'm like, this is crazy. This place was literally, it's a wholesaler. It is made for people who are running a business
Mhm.
or, whatever it might be. And here is me, and here are other people who are just shopping for their groceries.
Yeah.
What a great grift by Costco. I don't know how they got to that point, but it's very popular, like grocery store now. And by the way, they are not going to get things that are your size. You can keep asking them, why can't they just have 1 banana or something like this? It's like, no, they're going to have 40 bananas. You have to buy 40 bananas.
have you ever seen anyone buy a singular banana?
No, I don't think I have.
I feel like the
actually.
smallest
I've
amount of
seen it
bananas
before.
I've seen is someone picked like 3 off of a 5 to only have 2.
Yeah.
And I thought that was weird, but it's like whatever he's doing. Yeah, you
Go
just
for
need
it.
2 bananas.
Well, you've
But I've
seen somebody
never-
buy
I
a
would-
single banana, Joey?
Yeah, it's happened at the
Have
grocery
you
store.
bought a single banana?
No, not me.
Interesting. You have that weird
I mean,
smile
I'm
on
sure
your
it's
face, makes
happened.
you
I
think
just
it's
mean
you.
like I've never seen anyone physically take the banana.
I mean, I used to work at a grocery store, so I'll see it occasionally.
That's
It's-
true.
It's just dependent on the person. I worked at the breakfast area, and sometimes people would bring a banana over just to have with their meals.
One single
Well,
banana.
was
And
there
how
like
do
an
they
area where
pay
the-
for it?
They'll just pay for it at the other registers.
So they just weigh it. It's 1 banana.
yeah,
What does it cost them?
I don't know.
18 cents.
How much could it cost?
How much could 1 single banana cost? But
$9.
admittedly, that was probably a poor example because you get the same amount. You get the same amount of bananas in a bundle as you would at a normal grocery store. But they're not going to adjust anything for you guys. It's a wholesale store. All their food is going to be giant.
They grift with thrift. They make people feel like they're saving money when they're actually buying probably more food than what they really need.
Yeah, you
But
have to
it
buy
feels
two loaves of
Yeah.
bread.
It
You
feels
have to.
like you're winning in the whole.
They will send you back.
Oh, yeah.
You'll go up there and they'll be like, I just would like to buy this 1 bread, and they're like,
No, you're
Nope.
stocking up for the next pandemic.
you could. What if I just paid for 2 breads, but only got the 1? Like I'm paying you extra money. They're like, nope. Take the 2. Go. You will go back and you will go get the 2nd bread.
Me
I'll
and
go
this
back
other-
for you.
Yeah, me and this other guy want to split this giant box of cereal. Can we do that? No.
You will buy 2 boxes of cereal.
You want muffins? You're getting 2 things of muffins.
Oh yeah,
You
I had
want
that.
bagels.
I did that
Good
once
luck.
with bagels. I did that once with bagels. They were like,
He's
I was like,
awesome.
how am I supposed to eat 16 bagels? And they're like, I don't care. You don't matter.
I
You will
once-
buy the 16 bagels.
I once just had Shelby take the other bag of bagels into like her office because she worked at a physical office. I did not.
Right.
I was like, just give people bagels because I just wanted these bagels. I only wanted these for us. We didn't need the other bagels, and I'm not going to freeze them because it's not going to be the same.
Correct.
And so
never
I was
is.
like, I paid the money for it. We are donating bagels to your office. So we did.
Good.
We were like
they
Steve
probably
Simple and just giving bagels.
they
away.
probably didn't even get eaten there. They probably ate 6 of them. Were like, that's plenty. I think I'm done now.
Now I'm pretty sure those are pre-sliced, unlike when Josh Hodson brings it.
That was truly unbelievable. He bought bagels from a very popular bagel place that everyone should go to, called Bagel Bin, and they were unsliced
30 cents
because
they cost him.
he thought that they were going to charge him for slicing it, which they don't.
Every bagel.
Great job. All right, thank you for the bagels, Josh. We appreciate it. We'd take them at any point.
Yeah, if you want to bring them in today.
So here's a tweet from our dear friend Rob Anderson, who is incredible. It gave me. I jumped on with John in the post game on Saturday after the Creighton game.
Good job, by the way.
And he handed me a note, and it said there is a 6-way tiebreaker in the Sun Belt Conference because we were talking about conference tournaments. And then I looked it up, and sure enough, that was true. So we love Rob, and he had this yesterday. He said, "I saw a list from a peer that ranked the 10 teams with the highest percentage of scoring that returned in 2025-2026 in men's college basketball. Not surprisingly, 9 out of those 10 teams are having better seasons this year than they were last year." So once again, he's got a list of 10 teams who returned, this is college basketball, who returned more than 65% of their production. And 9 out of the 10, so the overwhelming majority, are having better seasons in 2026 than they were last season that ended in 2025. Navy, which, it's Navy, returned almost 87% of its production from last year and is a 25-win basketball team this year.
They are very often matched up with Nebraska in a lot of the
Fascinating.
brackets.
Fascinating.
No David Robinson.
No, I mean, like, it's going to be a 13 seed or a 14 seed or whatever. But, like, honestly, I wouldn't want to play the team that has 87% of its production back. That means they're pretty, they're pretty tied in. Purdue is, returned a lot from last year. There's 10 teams on here. Miami of Ohio, hilariously, is one of them. They were good last year. Obviously, they are better this season. So it sort of got me thinking. My theory is that continuity, or as it's statted these days, returning production, continuity and returning production mean even more now in this world of college athletics that we're in, where it is not uncommon to see rosters completely torn down and rebuilt. You return 0 production, that's at least in basketball. In football, there is a version of that, although it's unlikely that you're going to have 0 returning production. But my theory is that it means even more now, especially early on in the season where teams are trying to get their bearings about them. And I actually tweeted at Bill Connolly last night because I realized that I hadn't seen his returning production charts yet. And he said it's coming soon. It's usually out around this time of the year. I would imagine, and so to move this forward to Nebraska football or college football in general, I would imagine that when those lists come out, Nebraska will be rated quite highly in returning production. I sort of did some back of the napkin math last night. Like, I think they're going to be hovering in like the 80% range, like 75, 80% range for returning production. Now, what is that compared to everybody else? I looked at last year's. I think that would have been in the neighborhood of like the top 15 or somewhere around there. Don't be surprised. So if you're looking for off-season Kool-Aid, or you're trying to deny off-season Kool-Aid, don't look at that when that comes out, because that'll tell you that they're going to return quite a lot. I think that's important. It doesn't tell you the entire story. It doesn't mean you're automatically going to be good. But once again, to just reiterate, I think that is an underrated part of this team that we're just simply not talking about right now. That is my hope. That is that is the bright shining light at the end of the tunnel for me. They're going to return a lot. And it's the same, it's in a bigger picture, it's the same with a variety of other, you see it with Nebraska basketball this year. Look at how much production that they return off of last year's team, and then they added in pieces. You see it in the opposite with Creighton basketball this year. Look at how much production they didn't return by way of graduation, and look how haywire it got right off of the bat. And so, like, I just think we see corollaries to this all the time, and it almost always is an indicator on whether you're going to be good or not. Returning production in 2026.
Yeah, and I think inside of that, there's different levels of like what good is. Because if you know, and it's hard because we're cross sports comparison, but if you just look at this sort of graphic too, like Purdue is really the only team in here, and I guess you could say Miami of Ohio, that's like
really
upper
good.
Echelon.
Yeah.
But what it also tells me for most of those teams that aren't that is that they raise their ability to compete within their comparables. And so, you know, if you're looking at it from a Nebraska standpoint, if you bring this production back and you raise your ability to compete within the comparables, like in theory, you should be beating the Minnesotas, and you can play with the Iowas and Washington and whatever else. It doesn't necessarily mean you're more likely to beat an Indiana or an Ohio State or whoever. And they're going to have their own sort of returning numbers on that. Ohio State certainly more than Indiana with returning production, but and then Oregon is going to have a lot with more coming back.
My guess would be Oregon is going to be up pretty close to the top. So yes, of course there are outliers and different ways to do it. And at the end of the day, like, who your coach is and who your quarterback is and who your best players are going to weigh heavier especially in the like top tier. How high is our ceiling? But I think to your point, Schaefer, it's a really good one. You got a really good chance to raise your floor.
Yeah, and
quite a lot.
That's largely what that graphic shows me, is that you give yourself a much, much better chance for a better jumping off point. Now, how high you jump is dictated by a lot of other factors, but it seems better to be at that position than wildly hoping that you hit on this, and this.
Correct. And so that's where we get into the other side of this, because people will say, well, you know, Happer, look, if it's returning production is great, but if it's bad returning production, then like, you know, what are we talking about here? You have to, you know, see it from both sides. And so Rob also had this graphic of, this is once again college basketball. There were several Power 4 high major teams who did not return any production last year. They returned 0 points, and the results won't surprise you in the sense that not necessarily definitively are they worse every time, but the variance is much, much higher. Baylor got a little bit worse from what they were last year. I remember when we did the game in Vegas, and I remember seeing they are one of just 6 or whatever power high major teams who did not return any players from last year's roster. Miami got a lot better. Miami was horrid last year. They were 7-24. They're now a 23+ win team and going to be in the NCAA tournament. Indiana had a coaching staff change.
The Indiana West Virginia thing back to back right there,
pretty funny.
Is hilarious.
Pretty funny.
Like,
because D-Rock went from West Virginia to Indiana. Indiana hasn't gotten a whole lot better, and West Virginia hasn't gotten a whole lot worse either. And both of them changed out their rosters.
But it
completely.
makes you wonder if, like, okay, that move doesn't happen, and then West Virginia hangs on to more of its, like, where are they building up from there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not in that first chart that you looked at, but there certainly seems like they're going to be a more likely to have improved upon a 19-win season.
Xavier, they were a 20+ win team last year, and they've been at the bottom of their likely outcomes this year, just barely a top 100 team on KenPom right now. So I think that's the point of that. If you do clear out, there's a possibility that you get better. You get the bad production out and new coach and whatever it might be. Like, in theory, the world is your oyster when you clear out. However, there is a lot more room for variance. There's a chance that you could be good, but there's a better chance, in my opinion, that you could suck, and it's going to take some time for it to come together. And so I think the floor and ceiling conversation is very, very present, and I think we can apply it to football. I think Nebraska's floor for whatever it was last year, and I know that's what people aren't necessarily going for anymore, and whatever. I do think it continues to rise.
Yeah, there's also, you said something in there about how returning production doesn't matter if it's bad returning production.
That's what people will say to me.
But that-
I don't know that I necessarily agree with
right,
that.
and I didn't mean to imply
Yeah.
that you think that. One of the problems with that, though, is like, then how does development work? Like, if we can't assume that everyone is going to be the best version of what they are immediately, then
Great point.
in order for development to actually occur, which I know it's hard to remember now, but if you go back a couple years ago, what were people screaming that they wanted most out of this program?
Development.
And so, for that to happen, guys have to be here for several years. They have to continue to improve upon the versions of themselves, and get better.
And you got to do the same thing
Right.
Continuity has to pair along with it. You can't just do how many players has Nebraska had where they were here for 4 years and you were like, I'm not really sure if they got better, but at the same time they had 4 defensive coordinators or 4 offensive coordinators. That is not a conducive environment for development.
No.
You have to see something out too. Like that's another piece of this.
And so that's where it's sort of the defensive line in particular is a fascinating equation for Nebraska, because you've gone through 3 different defensive line coaches now in what will be 4 seasons. You're hoping, and it does feel like, should this work to at least the degree of which Nebraska's won the last 2 seasons or slightly better, it does feel like you have a little bit more stability with Rob Orich than John Butler and where they were at last year.
That's the idea.
I mean, because last year sort of felt like we can slap anybody in here and it's going to be the same. We've got Tony White's if you want to, oh God, is that going to be special teams? You might want to turn your radio off. But we can slap anybody in here and it's going to be the same because we have the tenets of what they want to do. And this guy
Interesting.
It didn't go well. And it didn't go well on a variety of fronts. And I think it had as much to do with sort of not recognizing your deficiencies early enough or attacking them aggressively enough in the defensive line.
Well, I mean, there's probably a little bit of ego in there, you know, like, hey, look, I mean, he said it a lot. As long as I'm here, we're going to be good at defense.
Yeah.
Point blank period.
There was an element of Matt Rule, Tony White, that felt like Matt Rule sometimes was annoyed that Tony White was regarded as why they were good defensively in 2023.
I mean, you could apply the exact, it sounds like a mirrored conversation with Eckler.
Well,
and he even said it out loud. He was like, hey, the special teams coordinator has to not do it for the glory of the special teams. I'm like, what? Who cares?
The head coach probably doesn't need to do it for the glory of himself.
I know. And that's the thing. So yes, there are a lot of corollaries to the special teams conversation.
I don't think we were intending for this to come across the way that it did, but it is kind of a, hey, if this defense is going to work, it's because they're trusting Rob Arch to do it. And if it works, you're hoping it works for several seasons, not like immediate. And that's, if it goes really well and he just gets plucked by somebody else, you've got that problem.
Change can be refreshing. Change
can be scary.
There's a lot of places where it is good and it can be good. And like you said, last year with the defense, something had to change. You were going to run that back just for continuity's sake. And there was just no way that you were going to be able to do that.
And they did a great thing in my mind. They went out and they got guys that have multiple years of eligibility. So players like a Dexter Foster and a Will Hawthorne are going to be in that linebacker room. And they were people that you would want anyways, but how they play in this upcoming season relative to, is their breakout actually going to be in 2027 kind of thing?
And that's why I agree with you completely. And that's why when people saw the portal rankings or whatever, they're like, this is sort of like an underwhelming portal class. And like, sure, it lacks, I think, star power, but don't think that's really what they were shooting for. And at the same time, they got a handful of starters.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least. I don't know, like whether you feel positive about it or not.
Yeah.
They did check a lot of boxes in the last 3 months.
I walked away from January like, man, it felt like they needed to do more. And then by the end of February, looking through the different areas where maybe they've improved, but also allowed for themselves to be even better in 2027, I kind of realized I was too dismissive of what they did in January. And some of that is maybe I'm just buying a little bit too much with a Dexter Foster, or, I've talked myself into Anthony Jones has value that I didn't see in January.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was like, oh, cool. They got a defensive lineman to say they got a defensive lineman who played at 5 different schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, all right, there might be something here that I should at least allow play out before I've determined that this is a nothing burger.
Texter Gus Mohawk writes in, how much does having the youngest roster in the Big Ten play into the combine to combine the recruiting and the portal rankings?
Doesn't matter
but what he's saying, I think what he's trying to say is like, hey, look, you are bringing back so much. There's only so much flexibility that you have in the portal and the recruiting rankings. And yeah, like I think that affects that, right?
Here's where things get tricky. And this is if you go through the roster at the end of last year and you go through the depth chart at the end of last year, what's problematic is where they want to talk about where they're young. They also have like 2 recruiting classes that could just end up being very little in terms of what they get out of it.
Right. You can't say that you're young for 5 years in a row.
You're young, but you're young and not playing, which is concerning. Because if you're young and playing, there's jumping off points from there. If you're young and it's like, hey, we got these 3 defensive backs in 2024 and none of them are better than what we went and got out of the portal, that's a little bit like,
see, that's where I feel like this is going to be an everyday thing now. We need a bell for it. Like,
this show has a lot of like, we need things that we
always come back to the same crap.
And sounders.
What in the world happened in 2024? Because they were young and then they weren't. And then they were again, Like, what do they say? You get old and you stay old.
Old, stay old. Yeah.
Yeah. And you would think that would happen. And it just really hasn't. So maybe now on their second run of trying to get old and maybe successfully getting older, they actually stay old.
Yeah. Well, the best example of this, I think I had said defensive backs, but the best example of this is Matt Rule in front of the room is talking about how I really like my young offensive linemen. And, the thing with offensive linemen is you got to get them in, you got to get them a couple years, and you want to get old at that position. And we've got guys we want to get old with. Well, that might be true, but you went out and you got 3 other offensive linemen
who are old
because now Grant Bricks is in his 3rd year and you don't know where you're at with him.
Yep. So it's a mixed bag for sure.
Like Brock Knutson, Sam Sledge. We'll see what Preston Talmua is. Like, some of these guys, you need more information on.
Agreed.
And they've chosen, some of this is Jeep Wade came in and he's like, I want option number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of his prerogative because you're kind of going with what Jeep Wade wants to do.
And there's only so many times you could reset the deck too.
Right.
And we're reaching the limit on that at this moment. All right. So more on this and spring ball with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. He'll join us in a minute. First, a reminder that the Omaha Food Fight is back, and we'd like you to nominate your favorite spot. The restaurants with the most nominations will battle it out in the official Omaha Food Fight bracket presented by Union Bank and Trust. Nominations are open now through March 12th. That's a week from tomorrow. The bracket drops on Sunday, March 15th. Head to 1620thezone.com, nominate your favorite restaurants, and let us know which ones deserve a shot at the culinary crown. That's all at 1620thezone.com. I'll tell you what, nothing says college baseball opening day in the Midwest, or in Nebraska anyway, like the weather we have outside right now. There is nary a leaf on the tree. We still have gray piles of snow. It is cloudy and overcast and rainy, almost snowing. And here we are. Mitch Sherman joins us now on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone Hotline. Good morning, Mitch.
Good morning. Are they going to get this in down at Haymarket? I tried to just cancel it yesterday during our podcast and say that the home opener was Wednesday against South Dakota State.
You might end up being right.
Are the Mavs gonna get on the bus and get up there? I don't know. There's a better day they could play this, like in April or May, right? Like they are close. It wouldn't be difficult to reschedule.
I would think that they would want to do it just so they don't run into
Perhaps on a Friday or a Saturday or
oh,
a Sunday.
there goes Schaefer making excuses again.
Not making excuses. I'm just saying Nebraska doesn't win midweek games against area schools or Summit League teams.
You better change that if you want to be in the postseason this year.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. You can't depend on right fielders missing sinking line drives to make the postseason every year.
That guy's coming
back.
Generation thing.
That guy's coming to town this weekend, Mitch. I wonder what kind of reception he'll get. Yeah.
I don't know. Will the Nebraska baseball fans be intelligent enough to? I think so. Yeah, I think some people will remember. They should give him flowers when he goes out to take his position at Haymarket Park this weekend.
Parker Pico, I believe his name was.
Oh.
Yeah, he's so just not to overly inform people. They would have figured it out on their own, I'm sure. But
we're gonna have like huge crowds out there on Saturday and Sunday if it's actually 70 degrees. Like I know at one time the forecast said.
Specifically in right field, just pack everyone into right field if he's playing right field, and then just really go for it there. They could take some of the things that they learned from the SEC student section that they saw this past weekend and get things going out there.
Is that why they played the way that they did at Auburn? Is that the reason now? Because the SEC student section was all over them?
Exactly.
It might have had to do with the 25 walks.
that
might have been a part of it.
Maybe. Mitch, we were just talking a little bit about return. I haven't seen the exact list yet, but I'm under the impression that Nebraska will rank highly in the returning production category this year. It's such a fascinating conversation because there's a balance there with a variety of different things. First of all, you do get a lot of production back, which is, I think, important. It means continuity. Now, you want to get the production to develop. I think that's a part of it as well. And like anybody else, you need guys who weren't here last year to sort of produce for you as well. What does the picture look like to you at the moment, just as far as the optimism on what is coming back for Nebraska off of last season?
You're talking about football, right?
But yes, football.
Okay, just making sure because we were in a baseball
That's
conversation. True. I was gonna start talking about Dylan Carey and Josh Overbeek, but yeah, I think to me that was probably the most important development that got the least amount of generated the least amount of conversation that it deserved. Like if there's a statistic you could generate based on how much we should have been talking about something and weren't, it was that Nebraska was able to retain the likes of Ja'Cory Barney and Isaiah Hunter, and you can go Vincent Shavers and Andrew Marshall, and there are players all over the field and most position groups. Elijah Pritchett, Justin Evans. They obviously lost Dylan Raiola, but that was almost like in a different period because he announced his intention to go into the portal back in the middle of December, and you really kind of felt pretty shortly after the injury, right when he got injured, I thought, oh, maybe that means that he's going to come back, and then pretty quickly after that, you realize no, it's the opposite. So that was a different part of the whole off-season calendar. And then when they got to January, I thought there were very few, big disappointments about who was going into the portal for Nebraska. So I really like what they were able to do, what Pat Stewart was able to do and his staff in finding ways to retain their talent. And that probably played a role in, what some people have described as underwhelming results at certain position groups for Nebraska to gather players from the portal. I think in any sport, I saw a basketball stat this morning about the teams that are at the top and projected to get the 1 seeds in a couple of weeks, and how much they were able to retain from last year, which is tough to do in the sport of basketball. And it's pretty high. Like if you want to be successful in either one of these sports, I think you have to prioritize that. And Nebraska did well this year in keeping its talent on the roster.
Mitch, as you've gotten a little bit further away from the end of the portal cycle and the players Nebraska added, plus now getting into the spring, is there any name that's maybe jumping out a little bit more to you that you weren't thinking about as much in January when you were assessing that portal class?
I would say, I was thinking about him in January, but now that I've got to hear from Owen Chambliss, I am thinking about him more, and I'm thinking about what they might have gained here, and how it might not have made a big enough deal about Owen Chambliss. He was, definitely one of the more prominent players that Nebraska signed on the defensive side, and I think it was somewhat expected because he was at San Diego State, and right. Because you thought, well, Rob Orich is going to bring some of his players, and he brought 2, and so it was like maybe we didn't spend as much time talking about him because of where he came from. And if Nebraska had hired a defensive coordinator from somewhere else and still got Owen Chambliss, it would have been a bigger deal. But an all conference guy, and in a good conference, the Mountain West, and production, up and down the stat sheet. And then you hear him talk last week, and I liked what he had to say, and he has 2 years as well. So that's important for the Nebraska program.
Where is it most important where a returning guy makes a jump, and why is it someone on the defensive line?
That didn't jump to my mind.
Oh, really? Okay, well, go for it then.
I was going to say something about the offensive line, but no, I'm with you, Connor. I agree. The defensive line, just look at what Nebraska did last year on the defensive line, and how it defended the run, and how important solid play on the defensive line is to Nebraska having a good, productive group of linebackers. They go hand in hand, and this is a new scheme and a new opportunity, and I think it will be a better fit for a number of the returning defensive linemen. If Nebraska is going to be good on the defensive line, good. You don't even need to say good. If Nebraska is going to be adequate on the defensive line, and that can be the anchor for what is a good defense and improved defense, I think it has to start with the players who were in the program last year. You can expect to get things from Owen Stoudemire, from Jasir Whittington, but I don't know that there's a path for Nebraska to be good on the defensive line if Riley Van Poppel and some others, Sua Lafotu, maybe he's a guy. Maybe you get a real jump from somebody like David Hufkin, who's now been around for a while and has never been lacking in the physicality or just the base physical skills to be an impact player. You don't sign somebody from overseas and give up on them in 2 years when they haven't played football. I think there's real hope for him to become something in this program. So, I'd say that that's the position group, and those are some of the names I look at.
You
Williams
wrote
Nwaneri, he could jump.
Yeah, that would be a big one for sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there, Mitch. You wrote a story on The Athletic last week about Sam Hoiberg, and so I got a couple questions on that. One, were there any good anecdotes that you weren't able to kind of work into the main story, whether talking with Charlie or any of his family or those coaches? Two, is there a comparable to kind of the Sam Hoiberg thing that you can, cross sport obviously too, where it's just this guy that we've steadily just seen improve to the point where now it's just everyone kind of has to regard him as one of the top 2 players on the team, and you never would have seen that coming at any other point.
Cale Jacobson? No,
well,
that's pretty close.
That's next year's story for sure. Get that one ready.
2 players on the team, but he's kind of on the same path as Hoiberg. They're different, of course, but I'll answer the first part first. I don't have great comp that just like jumps to mind. How about Will Bolt? And in Nebraska baseball,
Oh,
there's an interesting comp for Sam Hoiberg. So yeah, Sam told me we started talking about Monte Morris, and I had just come out of the press conference with Fred Hoiberg and asked Fred about Monte because they are on track, if Sam can keep this up, to become the only two power conference players in the last 14 years to average 5-to-1 assist turnover ratio. And Fred went into a whole deal about how Morris was a different kind of player than Sam, but then there were some similarities, obviously, like with their competitiveness and the way they distribute the ball and just their work ethic. And so I asked Sam about that. And I didn't get it into the story because his numbers, he dipped just below the 5.0 with his game against Maryland, where he had a couple of turnovers, and then he went back up after the USC game. So he's right around that number. Sam said that he's been hearing from Monte Morris, and that Monte has been texting him throughout this season. He plays in Europe. You know, one of Fred Hoiberg's top recruits in his time at Iowa State, and Fred spent half of Morris's career in Ames and then the other half with the Chicago Bulls, but definitely had an understanding and a great appreciation for who Monte Morris was and what he meant to that program. And Fred was the reason he was there. And Sam said that when he was young and his dad was the coach there and Morris was playing, that he would go to the basketball camps, and the two of them had like their own handshake that they did, Sam and Monte. So there's a real connection there between the two of them that continues to this day. And you know, possibly they're going to be linked in history with this kind of season that Sam is having.
there was one point, like, I don't know, probably about 8 years ago, where I considered buying a Denver Nuggets Monte Morris jersey. I really liked Monte Morris. Now I'm a Nuggets fan, but I really enjoyed Monte Morris as a Nugget, and then they parted ways. So maybe I'll be buying a Sam
Would have been a
Hoiberg
deep cut.
NBA jersey. Yeah, well, you got to go deep cut. That's what the cool kids are doing. You know,
Are they?
you can't just buy a bunch of Jokic jerseys or
Okay.
LeBron jerseys. You got to get Monte Morris.
You don't want to.
There's a lot of Sam Hoiberg jerseys around these days. I expect that any direction that you turn on Sunday at PBA, you'll see a number one Hoiberg on his senior day.
I feel like everybody has weighed in on this topic, and we did a little bit earlier. Who is more invaluable, or who is more valuable to this team, Sam Hoiberg or Price Sanford?
I go Sanford. I'm sorry. I go Hoiberg. I was getting ahead of myself there. I have plenty of reasons to back up the argument that Sanford is the most valuable player, is extremely valuable. Like, he's been a guy who time and time again has bailed them out when the offense hasn't been going anywhere and they've been in danger of falling behind big and in like their bad half of seemingly every game. And what happens, like, Price hits a big three. It's the only offense that Nebraska has going, and it keeps them hanging around, and then they make a run in the second half. Like, that's happened so many times this year. So hugely valuable. And he does things other than just hit threes as well. I mean, his ability to get into the paint was hugely important against USC. And if we didn't have Hoiberg with his crazy assist to turnover ratio, Price Sanford would be breaking the school record in that category. So he's great. He's a first team all Big Ten guy, I think, and I think he'll get it. And I think Sam will get some other kind of recognition, but just with everything he's done and the fact that he's been around for 5 seasons as well, I think just adds. I know you're asking about this year, but all the players know that, and they look to him because of the length of time he's been at Nebraska and his just deep roots within this team, with his brother on the staff, and of course his dad is the head coach, and the way that he does everything for Nebraska. And I thought Saturday at the start of the second half was the perfect example. Like, Nebraska was on fumes, kind of, or they were hanging by a thread a bit at times in the first half of that game. And then as soon as they got Sam back, it was like everybody just had a shot of energy, and it was led by him. And I think that speaks to his importance. He's the MVP of this team.
No doubt. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. All right, Mitch, we'll let you go. Appreciate it as always. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
All right, you guys do the same. Thanks.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. I suppose it's not the rest of his afternoon yet because it is 8:46 in the morning. What a great call by me. I also considered buying a Gary Harris jersey at one point.
Okay.
I was very close on the Gary Harris one.
Yeah, that seems
But
a
then
little more.
I waited a little bit longer and then he got traded. And I was kind of sad, but kind of like, all right, now we don't have to
That's
start
better.
Gary Harris every game.
Yeah,
now.
you don't want a jersey of a guy who's just been traded.
No, I would not have. He would have played for the Orlando Magic, I
Yeah.
think.
Nobody wants a man.
Get a Baylor Sharman jersey. He is starting for the Boston Celtics.
But then you got to wear a Celtics jersey.
Exactly. I just don't think I could wear anything that said Boston on the front of it.
I think it says Celtics on it.
Well,
Doesn't say-
they've been wearing the Boston ones most.
Well,
most
there's
recently, right?
I think
city-
the general idea,
their
Joey,
ci- their
is if
city
you look at the
edition.
jersey, you know it's a Celtics.
It'd be a
jersey.
little Boston pilled for me. Although I did when I went to Fenway Park, I did buy a Fenway Park shirt. That was like the closest Boston attire I'll ever have, I think.
Would you wear a NBA jersey? Like, let's say it's not Boston, but just like a random one.
Yeah, depending on what it was, if I liked it.
Mm.
Like, what are you gonna? What do you got for me?
But not a Baylor
Oh,
Sharman.
I just
jersey.
like I didn't know if you were the type of person that like, I'm not gonna wear a jersey of a not my team.
No, I have.
But it's specifically like I couldn't see you wearing a Knicks jersey or a Lakers jersey. But could I see you
Lakers
wearing a
probably not.
Raptors jersey? Sure, I could see you wearing a Raptors
Lakers probably not. Knicks maybe.
just because it's
disgusting.
the way that it
I'm a
looks.
New Yorker. That's why.
I mean, you're not.
I am too. My birth certificate says so.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't mean that you are. You spent how much time here?
Most of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a Midwestern guy.
You were
certainly not
born
in
in the
LA.
Missouri
Midwestern
Valley,
guy born
adopted
in
by
New
the Big
York.
East.
I don't know. Might be the opposite. Anyway, we'll finish off the 8 o'clock hour. I have to have Mike Schaefer weigh in on the most recent internet conspiracy
Yes.
after this on 1620 The Zone. All right, break update. I was trying to convince Schaefer that he should play 77 in Keno, and he seemed a little bit hesitant.
This is a pretty high number. Like I don't go that high. I'm very in the, let's see, 28, 31, 42. Like those are routine for me. Occasionally.
I like 77. I don't know.
77 is just high.
I don't know what's cooking, but I do like it.
Just
I've had some success.
you do seem like you would like the 2 numbers in a row thing.
It's always pretty clean.
Yeah.
Except for yeah, they're always pretty. I could think 11, 22. 22 is one of my favorite numbers.
This is going to sound
33,
moronic.
44, 55, 60. They're all good with the possible exception of 88. I
So,
don't care about 88.
I was going to
Even though it doesn't
say,
go to
like you had
80.
your numbers bracket. If I was going to rank the double number, 66 would be at the lowest on the list.
Absolutely, 66 sucks.
And so then I think you're right, 88. And then from there's like a tier. Like if we were doing this by tiers, because
Numbers
of course
with
we would.
tiers.
That is the bottom tier. It's 66 and 88. You could argue 88 maybe doesn't deserve to be in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
The rest of them are all very high.
I agree.
There's like a big gap between those two and the rest.
44 is good.
Yeah, 44 is great.
55. Joey, any comments on 55?
Double nickel.
Baylor Shireman.
It's a great number for my liking.
He wants to. He
You
wants
and
me to put
Jason
it on
Peter.
a jersey. All right. So we have. By the way, Keena writes in this conversation is peak Nebraska. It is. It kind of is. We
Talking Keno or talking
numbers we should
double
play Keno
numbers?
in. No, probably Keno.
Yeah.
Probably
Oh.
Keno. There's an internet controversy going around. So this weekend was the Actor Awards.
Oh.
I believe it is it's a formerly known as a different award show.
Like the SAG
but
Awards?
I think it's the SAG Awards, but they rebranded it to the Actor Awards.
Have we had the Academy Awards? Has that
No,
happened?
that is at
No.
the end of the month.
I am
believe.
like so thrown. Like they've changed the calendar on this. Didn't that used to be in February?
I legit don't know.
These are things you should know.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
These
they
are
are.
things I shouldn't know.
You watch award shows.
Anyway, I do watch award shows, but I don't pay attention to what time of the year they're in.
That's right. I need Joey for schedules and you to.
Yeah.
That's not my
what?
expertise. That's probably a Josh Odson thing.
It definitely is. a Josh
Yeah.
Allen
To be honest, I was thinking about Joshua. I had to determine whether either of you could answer this question.
So
No, I have zero clue.
this weekend was the Actor Awards.
Yeah, it used to be the SAG Awards or the Screen Actors Guild.
There you go. And it's the one where they all say, I'm blah, 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 and I'm an actor, which is kind of a good bit, by the way. But there's a red carpet and there's the whole thing. And our good friend, one of my favorite actors, one of my favorite people, Jim Carrey, shows up to the Actor Awards, and he's got a lot of things to say about a lot of different things, as always, And he showed up, and people saw videos of him, and they said, "What happened to Jim Carrey?" Well, you'll be the judge. Here is Jim Carrey 2006 on the left, Jim Carrey 2026 on the right. Now, anytime anyone looks any different at all, they will say on the internet that person has been kidnapped and replaced by a robot or
Oh, wow.
an impersonator of that person. And that is indeed happening yet again with Jim Carrey. They think that he may have died and that somebody has replaced him. I tend to think that plastic surgery has happened.
Yeah, his face looks very fake. He's old. He's attempting to try to keep his face that he could continue to appear on television and not have his ego hurt by the fact that he's old.
Trying to look young.
I don't like. There's just this, people fear wrinkles. I guess more than anything on the planet.
Super
They
weird.
would rather look like that
I would not.
than have wrinkles.
Bad take by that. Bad take by those
They
people.
would rather look like a plastic mask that's supposed to imitate what their face used to be.
Or like in the movie The Mask.
You would
There you
look
go.
better if he was the mask.
He might. He might.
might. No question.
So I don't really I agree with you. I don't really get the obsession with having a bunch of plastic surgery and looking like a total weirdo.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, now that we have ruled on this, by the way, we all think this is indeed Jim Carrey, the real Jim
Yeah, it's
Carrey.
100%.
Okay, I agree. I want the internet to stop doing this. This happens 5 times a year where someone shows up to an award show and they look completely different because they've gotten plastic surgery. And immediately there's a million conspiracy theories about how they've been kidnapped and replaced by a body double. Why do we do this every time? It's so dumb.
Is it earnest or is it a bit?
I'm not sure.
Wow.
I'm not sure.
It's deep enough that you can't even tell.
I'm not sure if the people who start these things every time are like just trying to rage bait people, but they get enough people to believe them. Like there's enough people in the world right now who think Jim Carrey is not Jim Carrey anymore. And that is alarming to me.
Are a lot of people who are not smart enough to be able to determine that something they read on the internet may not be true.
I know.
They sort of just blindly accept it. And this creates large problems.
Large swaths of idiocy.
Yeah. And so you're going to have a tough time eliminating this. I mean,
I know.
To the same degree.
It's a big dream.
There are, at least once or twice a year, it'll end up trending that so-and-so is dead when they are not, in fact, dead.
Avril Lavigne.
That media places, and sometimes they contribute to this because they inadvertently publish their obits before the people die.
They do. Because
someone either, made a mistake with how they ran their content management system, or they're just, incompetent. So I think we're just going to have this.
I think Avril Lavigne's still alive.
How do you feel about Jim Carrey? What does Jim Carrey mean to you?
I like Jim Carrey.
Jim
Carrey's in my favorite movie.
I kind of forgot, he's in so many movies for a stretch of time.
Yeah.
It is incredible. And so many of them are either very good or still really, really easy to watch, even 30 some years later.
Yep.
And he was just
and then he had a small resurgence, and now he's kind of gone again.
He's
not in real
prolific.
life. He's alive. He's just gone from our movie life.
The last thing he did, the Lemony Snicket's thing.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, that was a long time ago now.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
not
what
sure.
He's been up to lately.
No, last
Do you have
time
a favorite Jim Carrey role.
Last time I really cared was probably Bruce Almighty or Yes Man.
That's 20 years ago.
It's probably about 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
But I still watch Dumb and Dumber 5 times a year. So.
Is that your favorite?
It's my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Has to be. John writes in on the text line, I'm 52 years old and I look exactly like I looked when I was 32. Absolutely nothing has changed. I think Jim Carrey is dead. Thank you. Thank you for the text. Joe in Vegas writes in on Twitter. This is interesting. What's more amazing is the fact that you would take the time on the show to even talk about this. Who cares what Jim Carrey did or didn't do to his face? That's not what it's about, Joe in Vegas. It's about having a fun and dumb conversation, which is now over because
we
of
don't
you.
Even care.
You ruined it, Joe in Vegas.
We don't even care that he did this to his face.
Not at all.
We're determining whether people on the internet are idiots.
Yes.
And Joe in Vegas has confirmed that they might be.
That's all.
They indeed are.
Covered with a cloak of Jim Carrey. All right, we'll be back 9 o'clock hour after this on 1620 The Zone. All right, 9 o'clock hour. Happer and Schaefer on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com. Young the Giants coming to Omaha this summer. The Victory Garden Tour with Cold War Kids and Kenny Hoopla. Monday, August 3rd at the Astro. And on Sportsmanlike Conduct, we'll have your opportunity to win your way into the show as we go on throughout the week. Jacob Badilla is going to join us in a few minutes to talk some hoops, high school hoops, Creighton hoops, just hoops in general. How about our friends from Grow Omaha coming through again for me? I've read.
We really need to talk to them.
We need to talk to these people because I like what
we
they're
like
cooking.
their work.
I like what you guys are cooking over there. By the way,
Go Grow Omaha.
I believe they were also the first to report that the sinkhole area is reopening later in the week.
Oh wow!
I thought that it was going to be months before they fix that. So thank you, Grow.
They just drive
Omaha.
a couple Fiats into the sinkhole and then pave it over.
I'm not. Is it going to be paper mache road? I'm not sure.
I'm just not going to drive over there for the moment.
Probably smart.
Not a good idea after they fix it.
Now, will
Just
you
give it some time?
will you do this? A roller coaster
No.
will debut at Funplex this summer. Mammoth will be 2,000 feet long and will rise 70 feet in the air. Funplex says the ride will be the biggest roller coaster ever in Nebraska. And Funplex is adding a photo and souvenir shop at the base of the roller coaster, a coffee and mini donut shop, an upgraded go-kart track, and extend ride hours on Fridays.
I have never been to Funplex.
Whoa! 70-second queue, dude.
Yeah, no, I know where it is because I've been to the bar right across the street from it.
You've been to Big Red Kino?
Winchester.
Oh, Winchester.
Yeah.
That's right.
I would go to Winchester before I would go to the Ralston Arena for any events that I had at the Ralston Arena,
Probably smart.
which was most notably going to UNO basketball games when they would
Famously.
play South Dakota State at the Ralston.
or a Metro holiday basketball tournament somewhere along the way. I think that was the last time I went to Ralston Arena.
I had a friend that got married at the Ralston Arena,
Whoa!
which
Do you remember the Omaha Lancers?
so he got married in the they have like this room that's off the side of the ice. And so, like, you know how people, they come in for their wedding, the wedding party or whatever.
Yeah.
They skated in, and it was sort of the disaster that you would expect it.
I mean, when you plan that, when you do that, you probably have a pretty decent understanding of what's going to happen.
Yeah, it happened.
Well, good. I hope their wedding turned out. Everything was good.
I mean, everything was good.
Did you go on skates?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever
skated.
been on skates?
Yeah, I have.
Only once.
Really?
It's been.
You guys didn't go to Moylan in middle school to
I
try and
drive by
hang out
that,
with
and
chicks?
I think about if I grew up in Omaha, my relationship with skating would probably be.
Wait,
a
are we
little bit
talking about
different.
ice skating or
Yeah.
just regular?
ice skating.
Ice skating was only once.
One time.
Yeah, I think twice, and it's probably been close to 25 years.
Oh, I was up
Yeah,
in Moylan
Mine's about
like
20,
probably like
close to 20.
once a week back in the day, back in middle school.
Did you go to I assume they
It was
had
the
roller
movies.
rinks here?
It was the movies and it was the ice rink. Before that, it was the roller rinks, the skate.
You strike me as someone
land.
who would have
Yeah.
hung out at the roller rink.
Oh yeah, we were up at
That was a
Skateland.
that was a common thing over there.
We were up at Skateland.
None
That was
of
more
these
of an
were-
elementary school
This was
thing.
not my childhood at all. We didn't have these things.
I joined a roller hockey league at one point.
I can believe this 100%.
because I just really enjoyed Skateland.
Yeah.
And so that's where it was. And I think I played it for a
position
year.
Would you have played in hockey?
I got to be honest with you. It's like the thing that I have done, like as far as a sports team in my life that I remember almost none of.
Really?
I remember being on rollerblades with a hockey stick in my hand and thinking that it was probably really, really difficult. And then I probably quit.
Mm.
There was a time in my life where I was quitting stuff. They wanted me to do wrestling in middle school. I quit. They wanted me to.
You do not. I don't mean this to be
I
insulting.
don't know why they
in
want me to
any
do
way.
wrestling in middle school.
You do not strike me as someone who would have any interest in being a wrestler.
I wasn't. I didn't. I don't know who drugged me into this. I was like, I don't think.
But
I
the
wanna do
idea of
this.
you in a physical combat situation is hard to perceive.
Exactly. I'm a very non-confrontational individual.
That is
You
100%.
Can you even wrestle if you're a non-confrontational individual?
You're just there to shake the hand.
I want to shake your hand.
I'd go to the guy and be like, "Why are we doing this, man? What?
Here,
I don't.
Do
I don't hate you.
He doesn't have to put that around our ankle. He can just hold your hand up now.
No, I'm a competitor. I know how to compete.
Yeah, you're very competitive, but you're not like
Definitely not hand-to-hand combat guy.
no.
Or weapons for that matter. I don't like weapons either. Why do you need a weapon?
What you're saying, you're not a combat guy, I think is where we're.
I think that
coming
sounds
down here.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds accurate. Jacob Padilla is going to join us in a couple minutes. I have one thing for before then. How about a list from America's
Lists are
most
good.
watched
We love lists.
network?
Yeah, they are the best at putting out lists.
Tom Fernelli, Big Ten quarterback rankings entering 2026
Now-
season.
And I made this joke online yesterday, but is Tom Fernelli a little bit underqualified to be assessing quarterback play as a Bears fan?
Interesting.
I mean,
I
are
have
we,
no
are
take
we
on
sure
that.
this is the guy that we want? Yeah, right now he clearly has Caleb Love at that.
Williams.
Caleb Love. Wow, where did that come?
It's Jordan Love and Caleb Williams combined, which would actually be an interesting player.
You're
Caleb
living
Love a
rent-free in your head.
basketball player?
Caleb Love played for North Carolina and
Yeah,
Arizona.
but
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
where
good.
that came from. Anyways,
Maybe not. Maybe he has a bit of a tainted eye for quarterbacks because
know,
he's watched so much.
he's talked
Bears
himself
football.
into Trubisky, into Fields, into all of these. Cade McNown, I'm sure, when he was making lists
Grossman.
for his grade school.
Good old Jake Cutler.
Oh yeah, Smoking Jay was the
like,
best
Jay
of the
Cutler,
bunch.
I regard Jay Cutler as the only Bears quarterback that I would say was good. That's probably the only time I've ever been jealous of a Bears.
He was
quarterback.
great for the Packers. He threw the ball to so many green and yellow guys, and they
Joey,
took it all.
He was great for the Packers because he didn't play in that NFC Championship game that gave you your only win.
Oh,
in an NFC
that
championship
is
game.
true, but there's several
The
other
Packers
games
do
where
not
he's thrown
defeat
touchdown
starting
passes
quarterbacks
to
in
other
NFC
Packer players.
championship.
who was the who was the backup that year?
Caleb Haney.
No, he was the third string, I think.
Yikes!
Oh,
He was the third string
so who was
So they were missing two quarterbacks that year.
because the second
I
quarterback.
don't think he's
Because
right.
they brought in the backup quarterback like around halftime or after halftime. He had like 2 or 3 possessions and he was terrible. He did nothing for the
Well,
Bears.
It's a Bears quarterback, so you can't expect the.
Then
backup.
Haney came in. He was slinging it.
Let's go to the
They
2011
could have
NFC
used
Championship game.
probably unborn Tyson. No, he would have been born at that point. Tyson Badgett would have been.
Jay Cutler got hurt. Caleb Haney took over. And the other person who threw a pass in that game was Todd Collins.
Yeah, that was the backup quarterback in the game. Haney was the third
Holy
quarterback
crap.
thrown
Todd
in.
Collins would have been very old at that point.
Dude, no kidding. He's 54 right now.
And
Hey, he
so
would have
this
been
is-
40, just under 38.
Yeah, he's 38 years old. Yeah, incredible.
Very funny, Joey. Your team gets by, with the greatest luck every single time. But anyway, here's a list
Well, they dominated for a good chunk of the playoffs.
from
Carry on.
from Tom Fernelli. Not a surprise to see Dante Moore at the top, a guy who's. I mean, I think Oregon's probably going to be the hot national champ. Like Oregon's the Penn State of this year. Oregon is the Penn State of this year in the sense that they're kind of like national championship or bust.
Sure, and they lost in the
Um,
semifinals.
Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
thing. Now, might it go off the rails like it did at Penn State this year? I guess we'll find out.
Is Nebraska going to beat Oregon? Is that what Happer's saying?
Maybe.
Nebraska's a Northwestern to Penn State.
Interesting. Who does Oregon have a big game the week before that they will devastatingly lose,
Let's find out.
like Penn State did this year against
I'm
Oregon?
now wondering: is Nebraska a bad enough team that if Oregon were to lose to them, they have to immediately fire Dan Lanning?
What a question. I'm curious
What
about
a
it now as
hypothetical.
well. Oregon, the week before they play Nebraska, has UCLA. Dang, that won't do it.
Yeah, it seems like that's more likely to be the Northwestern.
Shoot. They play USC 2 weeks before that.
Yeah,
That might be the one. Anyway, it
well,
might.
looks like Nebraska is the bounce back game.
So, Julian saying, I know you have some talking points about Julian saying.
I don't
number
really have
2.
talking points.
You hate him.
He's boring.
He's fine. He'll be good.
Boring.
You're not giving him enough credit.
What credit do I need to give him?
Well, he was a freshman last year.
So are all the Ohio State quarterbacks.
Sorry, he's not doing crazy spin moves like Braxton Miller.
All right.
What do you want him to do?
To not be boring.
He was good.
Yeah, he's fine.
Sometimes quarterbacks that are boring are good.
They can put any quarterback in that system and they're good. That's literally always happens for Ohio State.
I think you will find that Sand will elevate them as we go along. Mayava 3, Josh Hoover, the new Indiana quarterback 4, Damon Williams, Rocco.
Before we go too far,
yes.
What do you think of Mayava?
I'm out. I don't like him
because I'm in.
He's not accurate,
and I feel like it's an island.
He's not accurate enough.
And I'm guessing I'm just going to be deserted. Tom Hanks and Castaway.
I've seen too many bad things.
I don't know why I'm in, but I'm in. And it's not anything with Nebraska. Like Nebraska,
he can save himself with his legs.
Yeah, I think there's more there. I just like him. I don't know what it is.
So Mayava, Hoover, Williams, Rocco Beck, Bryce Underwood, Caden Hauser, Malik Washington, Colton Joseph, who? The Old Dominion quarterback?
Can we stop again here?
Yes.
Malik Washington should not be behind Bryce Underwood.
Or Caden Hauser.
That is ridiculous.
Or Rocco Beck.
I understand team context. Maryland is not as good as those other teams, and so it limits him. He is a better quarterback than those quarterbacks.
Anthony Calandria.
You could probably sell me on. But Bryce Underwood is too high at 7.
Anthony Calandria is number 11. And Fernelli writes that perhaps TJ Lateef wins the job, but I don't think the Huskers go into the portal to get Calandria if they expect that to be the case. He has plenty of experience from his time at UNLV in Virginia, and honestly, he feels like a better fit for Holgerson's offense than Raiola did. That doesn't mean he'll be better than Raiola, but it means he could be. That was the word. By the way, the rest of the rankings in the Big Ten are as follows. Nico Iamaliava, Drake Lindsay, Aiden Childs, Ryan Brown, Dylan Lonergan, Alessio Milivojevic, and Jeremy Heklinski. There's some names and syllables in those last couple.
Yeah.
The Milivojevic guy for Michigan State was pretty good last year.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. And honestly, I feel like Drake Lindsay might be too low on this list. I would probably put him over Calandria just because he's returning. I'd put him over Nico as well. Colton Joseph's interesting. There's a little bit of a people are talking themselves into a Wisconsin bounce back. I think
they ended last year strong.
Well, they ended last year strong, and then Tim felt like they had a really good portal. I've seen that opinion elsewhere. I don't know what their schedule looks like.
The Wisconsin-assance.
It does feel like, and I tend to think when this happens, people are trying to speak it into existence more than it actually we've got to find that bounce back team, and we're going to determine it's this team. And I just
schedule's pretty light.
Yeah, and maybe
schedule's pretty light.
Maybe it is there for Colton Joseph and company.
So we're more wood to chop on that topic, and we can do so at a later time. But we got to get out of the way to talk to Jacob Padilla. Coming up next on 1620 The Zone.
Go, Pack, go. Go, Pack, go. Go, Pack, go.
Jacob Padilla, Her Dat Sports, your source for Creighton hoops and Packers banter. Jacob Padilla on Happer and Schaefer, 1620, The Zone.
Once again, we might have to wait for that Packers banter, big voice man, but Jacob Padilla from Her Dat Sports joins us now on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. Jacob, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing all right.
Good. Are you recovered from a long, exciting night of district finals last night? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, fortunately, it was most of the games were a little early, so not that long of a night, but definitely a lot packed into about 2-3 hours. So
give us a quick rundown there. Like, what is the state tournament looking like now? And what all went sideways last night?
Well, we had 2 district upsets last night, almost a third, and we still got one more game to go. So we don't quite know what the field is just yet. We're in a weird spot where Creighton Prep fans and Creighton Prep are rooting for Omaha West Side to win, which is a very strange place for them to be in. I can't imagine what Schaefer would be feeling like if he had to sit there and root for the Packers to win an important game. That would just be brutal.
Be bad for Schaefer.
It's not the same, but in January, I had to decide whether I wanted the Packers to go get sacrificed by the Seattle Seahawks in the second round or to continue to listen to Bears fans. So it was that was a real choice I had to make.
Yeah. I don't know that Prep fans feel as strongly about Millard South, so it's not a one-to-one comparison. But yeah, I'm sure you did not enjoy being in that compromised position. So that's where we're at, because Lincoln High went there and beat Prep 4th straight year, I believe, that Prep's lost in district final, which is kind of crazy. 3 of them to LPS teams. So Lincoln Southeast beat them twice. And so Lincoln High punched its ticket. They're back in for the first time in quite a while. And then Topeka and the Vista went down to North Star and knocked them off. So we talked about this year being a great shot for Lincoln to go in and get the state title with multiple teams having a chance. We were thinking probably Southwest and North Star, and instead it's Lincoln High in Southwest, because Papia went down there and pulled off a comeback and won with scored with a few seconds left to take the lead and knock off the Gators. So those are kind of the 2 big upsets in A last night. So now we are waiting. Prep gets the wild card if Westside wins, and if Millard South finds a way to knock them off, then Westside is in as a wild card. So it's kind of where we're at in Class A. That kind of everybody else held serve, but I was at Millard North last night, and
they had a late finish.
They had that game won, and then a turnover on an inbound. Like at that point, all they're trying to do is foul because there's less than 10 seconds left or whatever it is, and they're about, I think, 12.8, something like that. Less than 10 seconds at that point, and just sophomore Kyle Simpson shot the pass, took it the other way, and scored with 2.4 to go. And then Southeast, after timeout, got a half court shot off that didn't go in. So North literally stole that game from the jaws of defeat.
Impressive. Obviously, you don't know what the matchups are yet, as you were kind of detailing there. Is there a specific game you want to see in the environment down in Lincoln, whether it be in the early rounds or in the championship game?
I don't know if, let's see. So, pulling up some scenarios here. I'm just fascinated by, honestly, any of these, because the kind of uncertain nature of this season as it is, and just how up and down it's been, and it's gonna take three straight efforts of winning basketball, consistent basketball, and that's something that we've seen teams go on long stretches. I'm kind of fascinated just to see like how far the Sanders twins and Dakari Wilson can take Lincoln Southwest. They took an injury to one of their starters, one of their key floor spacers, and those two went down, and almost I guess those three together basically took down Omaha Westview almost on their own. So like those two twins against literally anybody is probably as fun basketball as you're going to see down there. If you haven't seen them play, Uzziah and Micaiah Sanders, listed at 5'10", not sure they're quite that tall, but I heard there was a brother-to-brother alley-oop last night in that game. So those are the kind of athletes we're talking about. They're real tiny, but they are so bouncy and fast, and nobody can stay in front of them one-on-one. You see teams try to zone them a lot, and they still find ways to get through the cracks in the zone. I've seen it before, and so I think that's, like, just in terms of fun to watch, them against anybody is certainly up there, especially after they were there a year ago and it didn't go well. And now as seniors, those guys are leading the way. And I think they're itching for a chance to take them on a run.
Which are you more excited about, Creighton playing Butler tomorrow or the Jackson Richardson announcement on Thursday?
Oh, I know which one Creighton, like general Creighton fans are more excited about at this point, because I think it's safe to say most fans have kind of emotionally moved on and are just ready to see what happens next and to start investing on kind of the next core of this team and what the future may hold. Because obviously this season it just didn't work, and going to be some shuffling, obviously, like there is every year with every team. And I think the team itself, they're trying to get what they can out of this season. We'll go talk to them today, kind of hear that before they hit the road. But yeah, it's a strange place for Creighton fans to be in at this point. But I mean, there's still conference standings kind of up in the air, depending on whether like 5-6 teams that have between 10 and 12 losses right now. So there's still a whole lot of shuffling to do before the Big East tournament. I don't think anybody's expecting a deep run or whatever, but for these guys and for what Josh Dix has gone through, I'm just hopeful that they can find something that he can at least get a few more games there and extend his season a little bit.
What, like, if anything, do you think is maybe the biggest lesson learned here from the Creighton perspective as they put this thing together and they went out and played? Or is there even really one? Is it just sort of, this is just the season from hell and it's hard to imagine something like this playing out exactly the same way?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter than the former. I mean, if there is one lesson, maybe it's just to value winning situations just a little bit more, at least on large scale. Like, I think a big problem, like there are several issues here. One, the Fedor Zugit situation significantly impacted their roster building and kind of their approach to the offseason. And I think maybe they ended up with a slightly different roster had they known that Zugic was going to be eligible, because they were operating as if, hey, we need another player because he's not going to be in the mix. And so that impacted kind of the way they rounded out the roster. And in terms of resource allocation and things like that, I think maybe we see slightly different player composition had they felt like they were good on Zugic, been able to be more aggressive with some of their top targets as opposed to the guys they got to kind of round out the roster. And who knows what that changes. But also, I think, like I said, they had added a ton of guys, and all of them, for the most part, were from losing situations last year. And once they've got here, you find out that they were in losing situations and they don't have winning habits. And it's been a battle all season long to kind of ingrain those. And it's hard to do in one season, especially when you're not winning along the way. And so, but part of that is because just some recruiting misses during the last era, kind of the last little stretch here. And they weren't able to like backfill the guys that they lost this year. So they ended up like, you didn't have guys that were ready to step in and replace Ryan Kalkbrenner and Stephen Ashworth and guys like that. So they had to go out and get a ton of guys. And with 9 newcomers, it's hard to kind of transition from an era with one of the greatest players in program history and maintain a lot of what you're doing when you're swapping out most of the roster. And the only guys that are familiar with how the team had been successful and what it took to get there are role players and guys that even by nature aren't demonstrative leaders and guys that are going to be in featured roles in that. So I think there's a lot of, and then the injuries on top of that kind of sapped any chance that this team could have found success. I don't know that they're going to be in this situation again to where all these factors are at play. It will be fascinating to see kind of this offseason how, like, what the players are thinking, what the coaches are thinking. Obviously, you got the McDermott situation hanging over everything, but regardless of who's making the decisions, who's back next year, like what is the core? Obviously, the season doesn't want to go. It didn't go the way you wanted, so like logically, you're just going to run it all back next year because again, most of these guys do have eligibility remaining to come back with the team. On the other hand, you don't want to just swap out the whole roster because that's part of how you got to this point is having to replace so many guys. So in that year 2 leap within a program, that makes a difference. You look at a lot of the winning teams and there's a lot of retention there. So that's kind of where they're at now moving forward. Is like, okay, which of these guys do we feel like another year in the program will help them get over some things? And which of these guys that we're bringing in or could potentially bring in, how will those guys kind of balance out the roster and maybe make the pieces make more sense than they did last year together? So there's still a lot to figure out there, but I think that's probably like the one thing. It's like just winning habits and trying to identify those and you can bring in a guy and teach him how to win. Like we saw with Jemiah Neal is the perfect example, but you already had the core around him. You're not trying to teach 5 guys to win at the same time. You're trying to simulate one key guy in with a group of veterans that have been there and done that. And then bringing a few young guys behind them. So that's probably more the model that if you want to be successful, that's what you have to shoot for. But that's not always in your control, and it certainly wasn't this year with the team.
Let me. It's sort of a similar thing there, but let me pare it down a little bit. Either way, next year there's going to be a new point guard, a new guy operating the reins. That'll be for the 3rd consecutive year after Ashworth, and then he was a 2-year guy. And we remember Ashworth's struggles at first, and then really settled in. And then Graves this year, I think, is gotten a little bit more comfortable as the year has gone along. Next year, you're going to have another new point guard. How important is it to, and this is more of a philosophical question, I guess. Do you want to shoot to have a multi-year point guard? Either way, you're going to have a year 1 point guard next year, whether it's a really young guy or you bring in a senior or, whatever it might be. What are you specifically looking for at that position as far as age and then obviously the skill set part as well? But I think most importantly, can you have that guy here for multiple seasons?
Part of that question, I would say, is tied into how the staff feels about Contrell Harmon.
Yep.
And what his future in the program might be. Is he a guy that you kind of bring him off the bench for 1 year and then he'll be ready to go and be a quality starter as a sophomore? If you think it's going to take a little bit longer, or if you do find a guy that is a really good fit that does have multiple years like that ideally, like that'd be great. You bring in a guy and because again, that 2nd year leap within this system and within most programs is significant. And that the guys really do improve the longer they are in a program for the most part. And so part of that will come down to just kind of circumstances. Can you find a guy that, one, is it within your price range, that fits your system, that has mutual interest? Like all those things have to play into it. And so can you find that guy with multiple years? Then great, go all in. If you find a guy that is a really good fit, but he's a senior, and you feel like maybe you can get Harmon ready to take over in a year, then that's okay. So again, a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily, you can go in with a plan and it's not always going to go according to.
Yeah,
that plan.
sometimes
You
your
have to be able
options
to
are just
adjust.
your options, right? Like that's
Exactly.
what you have. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the plan going in, is just first identify fit, system, culture, and all that, and then kind of the eligibility remaining is a bonus from that point, because I think they are excited about Harmon and his ability as a playmaker. So like that's something he really showed in this Scholastic League. He led them in assists a year ago, and so I think you don't necessarily want to go in like, you definitely don't want to have him start right away as a freshman. You got to go find somebody to hold that spot down ideally. But moving into the future, it's like you got to balance kind of those things and just get the best fit you can. Like that's the important thing. They have to go out and land a guy that can do what this system needs, and they kind of didn't quite get that this year. And again, like the Fedora situation impacted their pursuit of a point guard.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, Jacob, great stuff as always. Appreciate it. Have fun with all the high school stuff coming up this weekend, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, 2 straight weeks of state tournament basketball. The busiest time of the year, going to be fun.
You'll be living at PBA, my friend.
All right, bye guys.
That's Jacob Padilla from Herd at Sports. I just, we could even finish up the show with this conversation. I think they need a multi-year point guard, but you only get a multi-year point guard when you have a first-year point guard and he comes back for a second year. You know what I mean? Like, and he comes back for a third year, or, whatever it might be. It's a tough one. And so you got to find the right fit. There's no doubt about that. We'll take a break. We'll come back, round things out next on 1620 The Zone. All right, a couple things that I want to accomplish here in the next few minutes. First of all, I like to address something. So I get it. Like, I get the context of this message. Jack Rock writes in on YouTube. He says, "We don't care about Creighton. A real team plays tonight." Which, whatever. That's funny. But here's the thing I'm continually confused about. I was thinking about this deeply the other day. What is the point of misspelling the name of your favorite team's rival? Could you, you're a message board man. You are of message boards. Why is this such commonplace in message board town? What is the point? What point is it trying to prove?
Look, I think you're asking the wrong person because
Dang
I
it.
was continually like, why do you call it Fexes? Or
The only
know-
one I like that I've ever seen is Meat Chicken. For
like
Michigan. That one's funny. I like that one.
I like that. You have, the continual, whether it's State Pen or Pedo State.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Which obviously we know where the context is there. It's
Yep.
a little different than the other ones that come up.
Indeed.
Like I don't understand grown adults doing this.
Yeah.
I guess the one with it being Creighton, I suppose I understand slightly more because it's like your rival.
Well, I think they're trying to
But the people who
get under the skin of the fans of that like people on the message boards call Nebraska like nub, like nub.
Yep.
Which I'm like, is that supposed to offend Nebraska fans? I'm very confused because when all I do when I see people spell Creighton that way is I don't get offended by it. I just think, wow, this person is an idiot. They don't want to spell out the word Creighton. Maybe they don't know that it's Creighton and they want to spell it the very phonetical way.
When you went to spell it, did you really have to make sure you did not misspell it?
Well, I was pretty sure. I tried a little bit, but
a local radio host that would misspell things when he was very adamantly confident that he was going to spell it correctly, and it was not a bit, but it turned into an amazing thing when it happened.
That's pretty funny. Charles writes in, by the way, he says, "Here's my obligatory compliment to Schaefer's lid. Very solid. Nice
Good hat.
lid."
Thank you.
They're gonna bring them back.
Here's what I wanted to do.
I would consider maybe being a fan.
I think you would maybe
It would
watch
be
the
close-
Supersonics.
Yeah, I just don't know that I'd have the connection to it. Though, you go 20 years without
It's
a
true.
team.
Schaefer liking a team sporting a green and yellow combo.
Interesting.
Who would have thought?
Handshake meme,
Ooh.
Joey.
Who would have thought that I would like a team whose colors I liked and supported? They weren't even the same though in the 90s when I picked them. The Sonics were my first favorite team of anything ever.
They had red in
Yeah, they had kind of a very different look. And
That
then they
was
went back to
before the
retro.
Packers lived rent free in your head. Is that what you're saying, Schaefer?
Do they live rent free?
Maybe you could make an argument. I think.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are in there. It's like a multiplex of things that live rent free, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
If we're honest. But
I wanted to do one thing before we get out of here. So Evan Miyakawa's got the bracket sims up.
Mhm.
I want to do one bracket sim every day.
yeah, let's do this. I like this.
All right. So I'm just gonna click run new simulation.
Yep.
And we're gonna see where it goes. One bracket sim per day for the rest of eternity. Or I guess until the actual bracket comes out. We're gonna see where Nebraska is. They are listed as a 3 seed
Okay.
in the one of the regions, the bottom right region. And
We'll call that West.
they end up playing North Dakota State in the first round.
And-
They win.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
History is made.
Then they get the winner of Louisville versus a play-in game between Indiana/TCU.
Okay.
I have a high degree of confidence that Nebraska would win a game against any of those 3 teams.
Yeah.
In this case, it's Louisville, and they win.
All
They're
right,
going to
look
the
at
Sweet
that.
16. If they play Louisville in the round of 32, pencil them in. Nebraska's going to the Sweet 16. Then they run into 2 seed Florida
Ooh, that's
in the Sweet
Ouch.
16.
that's not looking great for them.
And yes, indeed, they do lose to the Florida Gators.
And
But
they
a Sweet
can't-
16 it is.
Wow.
We'll
And
have
they-
to settle.
And they can't play on spring game Saturday.
What?
Because that's Elite Eight if they play
Yeah.
Florida.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Because
Florida, by the way, ends up
Where,
going to the Final Four and losing to
where
Michigan.
some people earnestly ask, would you rather go to the
That would
spring
be
game or
stupid.
the Elite Eight?
What a ridiculous thing to wonder about. Anyway, the Final Four is Duke, Tennessee, Michigan, and Florida.
Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee, a 5 seed.
No,
Tennessee?
way.
They beat UConn in the Sweet 16.
Well, that seems plausible.
All right, that'll do it for our bracket sim today, and that'll do it for the show. If you missed anything, 1620thezone.com is where you can find it. The crossover is next.
It's Happer.